Hello, everybody.
Hi, Chair Barker.
Hello.
Hello, I'm just got to put my background on. I thought it was going to be on here. Hold on a second.
Everybody, it's Bill Mulder. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic.
Is my background on the correct side?
No, you need to switch it.
You're backward.
And do you need the Pride background? Because I can quickly email it
Oh.
to you.
Send it to me.
Sure, hang on.
I'm in the meeting, trying to set my background up.
Okay, I sent it to you, Chair Barker. You should have it.
Okay.
Hi, Commissioner Holman.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
How are you?
Good, good, good. How are you?
I'm all prided out. I've got no more to give.
Hi, Yola. How are you doing? Nice to see you. We're gonna turn off your camera until it comes to public comment, if that's okay. Yeah. Okay. Good to see you, Yola. We'll see you in a little bit.
Is that correct? My background?
Yes.
Okay, good, thanks.
Does anybody have it handy so they could send it to me?
Yes, I'll send it to you now.
Thank you. I know you already did, but I can't locate it quickly.
Oh, no worries.
Thanks.
Staff? It's 6 o'clock. Do we have a quorum?
Hang on, let me count participants. Yes, we have a quorum. Commissioner Balbone, Vice Chair Roche, Commissioner Shin Xiang is coming in now. There you go.
Okay, I'd like to start. I want to call this meeting to order. It's West Hollywood Public Safety Commission, June 13th, 2022. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the city of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Kizh peoples. Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Sun Xiang, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So let's move on to, roll call.
Commissioner Balbone,
Present?
Commissioner Hallman,
Present.
Commissioner Oliver,
Present.
Commissioner Roman,
Present.
Commissioner Su Xiang,
Present.
Vice Chair Roche,
Present.
Chair Berger.
Present. Adjournment requests.
I got one.
Commissioner Balbone.
So I would like to ask that we spend a moment in silence tied to the 163 people that have been killed in gun violence related mass shootings and the 605 people who've been injured in mass shootings since our last meeting in April, including 19 children in Uvalde, Texas, and two school teachers. So I'd just like us to do a moment of silence.
Okay, staff, can you give us, let's take 30 seconds in silence. Okay, thank you. Do we have any more adjournment requests? Commissioner Roman, do you have an adjournment request?
No.
Okay. Approval of the agenda? Can somebody move? I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call for the approval of the agenda.
Commissioner Balbone,
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Commissioner Roman,
Aye.
Commissioner Sushiyong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Roche,
Aye.
Chair Berger.
Aye. And we don't have approval of the minutes. Staff, do we have minutes from the special meeting that we need to approve?
Chair Berger, it's under consent. So you have two consent calendar items. One is approval
Okay.
of the minutes and the other is an update on the city's dockless mobility program. And also, can I ask that all commissioners turn their cameras on, please? Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, staff. I didn't see that. Approval of the minutes.
You can do consent calendar in one motion. So it would be to approve both of those items under consent.
Okay. Does anybody have a problem with anything on the consent calendar that they don't want to be on the consent calendar?
The
We
only
have the-
question, the only question I have, Chair, is if there are members of the public who are here to talk about one of the items on the consent calendar, if we move it to consent, what ability do we have to discuss any of the items that they bring to our attention in their public comments, which would occur after we put it on the consent calendar? That's my only worry about the dockless mobility in particular.
So it's already on the consent calendar. It was simply a receive and file item, which I know is a little different than what's typically done on the Public Safety Commission agenda. But we had both the minutes and this item, which were considered consent items. If the commission wishes, they can pull the item from consent. Jessica, do we have anyone signed up to speak on the consent calendar items?
Yes, we do.
So let's pull that then, and let's let the public comment, and then we'll move on to that if anybody wants to discuss it. Okay, so let's move on. First of all, let's go for the approval of the minutes. Does anybody have problems or changes with the minutes?
I'll move to approve them.
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Balbone made the motion to approve, and Vice Chair Roche seconded that. Roll call.
Commissioner Balbone,
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Commissioner Roman,
Aye.
Commissioner Sushiyong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Roche,
Aye.
Chair Berger.
Aye. Okay, public comments. Let's start with, well, I guess let's go with general. I know we had Yola Dore signed up. We had Michael Vojkolevich on some of the other ones, and Manny Rodriguez. So let's start with Yola Dore. Go ahead, Yola.
Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, Mr. Chair and staff and guests. Yola Dore, West Hollywood. I'm speaking for myself. But let me begin with some grave news that I'm sure most of you have heard. Tonight, before I complete what I've got to say, I'd like you all to take a moment with me for a commissioner that's been on this commission since the city began, really, for years. And tonight she fights for her life at Cedar Sinai. And of course, that's Ruth Williams. So I'd like you, as you proceed with your business tonight and make your decisions, to know what an important, how important it was to her as a friend. I'm speaking as a friend, not technically for her, how important our public safety and our city was to her. With all that in mind, about the dockless mobility, I think we have to have access. Those of us that are seniors and persons like me with disabilities really need to have our sidewalks and our byways open to those of us that wish to take a walk, go to the store, get out and participate in everything from Pride to other city functions. With these scooters and other things in our way, sometimes it's very, very difficult to even go through the crosswalk because they have it blocked. So I think we need to ask these folks for accountability. We need to have them, if they're doing business with us, to raise the bar a little bit higher and appreciate those of us that maybe can't ride a scooter but would love to, but those of us that have our own scooters, our walkers, our canes, our wheelchairs. So I'd like you to think about all that tonight as you make your decisions. And in the future, I noticed Mr. Chung was here tonight and other city staff that have to do with this. Sometimes it's difficult to call in. So I came to you to speak. Of course, I always enjoy your meetings. Thank you for all you do and continue to do for our city, for your dedication. And I hope it continues to be the best there is for our West Hollywood. Thank you.
Thank you, Yola Dore. Let's take the rest of the public comments here. And if anybody had wanted to speak on the dockless mobility, they can as well. And then we'll move on and discuss that if there's a discussion that wants to be had. Let's go next with Manny Rodriguez.
Hi, Manny Rodriguez, West Hollywood. First of all, I wish Ruth Williams the best for speedy recovery. She's an amazing woman. Is Commissioner Roman going to be on camera ever for this meeting? I'd like to know before I start.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Okay.
So you aren't in the meeting. Okay, fine. Should be on camera. I'm speaking on the, how much time do I have? 3 minutes?
Staff, can you put the blue sky timer on? Yes, you do, Manny.
Okay, thank you. This is about the scooters, of course. There they are in the background. This is what you see every day on the sidewalks of West Hollywood. Do not believe these stats in the staff report. They come from the scooter companies, not from an independent, non-biased organization. The city has always refused to engage such a firm. Just today, on a walk from Melrose and Robertson to Santa Monica and Palm, one way only, I reported 5 scooters abandoned in the middle of the sidewalk. You saw a picture of that in an email I sent you. I was also almost run over from behind from a wheeled scooter, basically a motorcycle, careening on the sidewalk. This is only a 9-minute walk, but fortunately I made it. Almost didn't. Also, do not believe this notion that these scooters are being used for any legitimate mobility. This constant talking point is a false narrative. The majority of these bogus scooter trips are recreational only. If you have to believe in something, you can believe in that. Do not believe, as suggested in the staff report, that the sheriff is enforcing anything to do with scooters. Not happening, and it never will. Maybe some of those proposed $45,000 a year UCLA graduates armed with clipboards will take this on. Nope, they won't. These brazen scooter riders are too mean to confront while making such an unlivable wage. In closing, don't believe the hype. Residents don't report because they don't know how and think they're stuck with this. The pedestrians' confidence in the walkable environment should never be compromised. Scooters compromise the safety of that environment. The no sidewalk technology will never be ready for prime time on purpose because it defeats the scooter company's business model of free anywhere travel and disposability. The on-demand scooter business model allows riders to be unaccountable. We ask for accountability every place else. Why not here? It is untrue that scooters have no impact on the environment. They waste electricity, and with a 3-month usable life, the disposal of these dead batteries is problematic. It is disingenuous to say that scooters prevent car trips. They do not. They prevent people from walking. It's really that simple. So as a small city, we have a chance of doing the right thing. I encourage you to act like the Public Safety Commission and say no to these scooters. And I hope you watch behind me because again, this is what's happening every day in West Hollywood. There's a police officer, does nothing, okay? So if you think this is okay, then that's what you think. But it's not okay. It's not okay.
Thank you, Manny Rodriguez. Myra Friedman.
Good evening, commissioners, and I'm very glad to be able to talk to you tonight because I also consider the scooter a huge problem. I have one arm and very bad knees, and I'm 78 years old. I was trying to walk on Sunset, and I was told to get the hell out of my way by a man who was riding the scooter without a helmet on the sidewalk with his dog in tow. And I was told to get the hell out of his way. I live on Clark Street, and there are constantly scooters just abandoned, usually right across the sidewalk. So you can't go to the left, you can't go to the right, you have to go out in the street in order to walk. My balance is terrible. And it's...
Myra, you just went on mute.
Well, am I on mute now?
No, you're back on.
Okay, well, people don't complain to you. They do what we used to call in therapy leaking. They talk to each other. And I think you all know that our mayor's own sister was run down by a scooter rider who ran a red light, and she wound up in the hospital with broken bones in surgery. It's a big problem. And the problem is also that I read the report, and the very last item on things to be considered, it's like you tacked it, or the staff tacked it on at the very last thing. It says, figure out ways, and I'm paraphrasing, figure out ways to make scooters available to people with disabilities. That is so disingenuous. What am I going to do? Ride a scooter? Is Yola going to ride one with her walker? Is David Nash, who's blind, going to do one? It's just, you're not getting all the correct information. I have never seen a scooter rider riding with a helmet. 75 to 85% of the scooter riders I see on Sunset are on the sidewalk. Please, guys, your safety. Keep all of our safety in mind. And I'd just like to end by saying, God bless Ruth Forster Williams. I love this woman, and I only want the very best for her because she's a wonderful human being who has done so much for our city. And I know she was very much against these scooters too. I can't speak for her, but I know she was, and I love her, and I hope she's okay. Thank you a lot for letting me air my grievances. I'm not just leaking, I'm venting. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Myra. Kat Eng.
Hello. Okay, well, my comment is not about scooters, although I will concur that they annoy the heck out of me. I think no one follows the rules, and with whatever people are saying to do about it, yeah, I agree. I'm actually calling for a few other reasons. Recently we discovered a stolen car on our street. I think there's been just a ton of activity, which I have been in touch with public safety, sheriffs, council, and all of the departments have been very responsive. So thank you. But we called about a stolen car. Or an abandoned car, and it sat there for 4 days. After 4 days, I called again, and when we ran the plates initially, we were told that the car was not reported stolen, so it just had to sit there. After 4 days, we called again, and I said, I think the car's been abandoned. Can you come get it? They ran the plates then and said, yeah, it's been stolen. So it's interesting because a few neighbors said they called. I know that the parking was called and the police. I guess I'm wondering why there isn't any sort of kind of, I don't know, coordination between the two departments or computer records or whatever we can do about that. I want to comment that Block by Block, who is absolutely wonderful and helpful, they don't keep records, I'm told, of incidences, because I was asked when reporting to these departments about these ODs, and I'd mentioned I'd only called Block by Block, but when I inquired with Block by Block, they said they don't keep records. So I want to suggest that. And then finally, Gardner and Lexington, you put in the flashing stop sign, wonderful, but you also moved the stop sign, and now people turning left on Lexington, it's like, it's awkward now because the intersection has been moved. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kat. We have a new public safety director or acting, I think he's named the director, Danny Rivas is here. It's his first time. And we got another item on our agenda here is the work plan. And we may discuss adding those kinds of things to the work plan to discuss. I know Danny has been very active with the code compliance department. He turned that around, and he did it with using metrics. So maybe there's going to be something that we can put on our agenda. It'll be discussed and voted on with our commissioners later in our work plan. Do we have any more public comments that we cannot see, staff? Okay, Commissioner Oliver.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who came out to speak tonight on this. I actually had a nice conversation about this with board member Friedman earlier today. She had emailed me, and as I was thinking about it and I was looking at the report, I was thinking that the overall conversation, there's a piece that's lacking, and that's the micro mobility lanes. Ultimately, in terms of putting the cart before the horse, the main solution to a lot of the issues that we're having with the scooters is that appropriate micromobility lane for both bikes, scooters, e-bikes, and all alternative forms of transportation. Regarding the docking stations, I think that a major issue with the scooters being left around is the fact that there are not enough of those docking stations. And when looking at the station map versus the heat map or the trip destination map, there are large areas of the city that, especially high trafficked areas of the city, like up near Dialogue Cafe where Holloway and Sunset meet, where there are no stations in that area. And that's one of the more trafficked areas via scooters based on that report. And then I'd like to hear more about how accountability is handled with the scooters. I see in there a lot of complaints and very few citations. Is there anything happening besides the LASD citations in terms of accountability, both for the people who are riding the scooters and on the supply side, the companies themselves? So I'd like to know that, because there is a disconnect between the number of complaints and the number of citations. So I was left with several questions from the report. Thank you. Okay,
thank you, Commissioner Oliver. And we're doing something kind of unusual because we pulled that from the consent calendar, and we don't usually have that kind of situation here. So let's run through a discussion about the dockless mobility, and then afterwards we'll go around for commissioner comments. Okay, so Bob Chung, do you want to answer the questions now or wait until we have more questions? Bob, are you able to answer those questions that he just gave to us?
Chair, I'm not here for that item. I'm actually not involved with that item. We have Kobe and Paige here to address that, so I'm gonna let them talk.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Kobe and Paige, do you have some answers for Commissioner Oliver?
You're on mute, Kobe.
Kobe, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Good evening, commissioners. Yes, I have a few quick answers. So the bike lanes, I believe, are a work in progress that is in the long range planning. Paige can answer or maybe speak to that, but I'll go into the docking stations. Those are being rolled out in different phases. So we've completed 3 different installations of the docking stations. We still have another 2 installations that are being planned for this pilot. So yes, there are gaps when you compare the heat map to our current station map, but just due to the nature of availability of resources, we've been trying to get as many out as we possibly can. And we still have plans to do the west side and then the north side of the city, where we think we'll probably hit all of those gaps that you're seeing in the heat map. Then we're also going to be working with the different operators to install virtual docking stations to kind of bridge those gaps between the physical stations, because there's only so many physical places we can put them. So we'll be working with the operators to have virtual parking stations to kind of bridge those gaps that you're talking about. And then for accountability, so yeah, there are 2 different mechanisms. You mentioned the sheriff department really focuses on the moving violations, the issues that the vehicle code addresses. And then there are terms of service, which the operators themselves, so the companies Bird, Lime, and Wheels, the current companies that are participating, are responsible for upholding their riders to their terms of service. Those are private or confidential information that we don't have access to. However, we can request and see if they have held anyone or canceled or revoked anyone's memberships for different types of policy abuses or failures to comply. Again, I don't know if that's something that they will share, but we can definitely try and get that information. I'll circle back with the commission. And then Paige, I'm not sure if you have information on the bike lanes.
Yeah, so we have a few projects pending within our transportation piece of our division to assess the feasibility of protected bike lanes. That's definitely something a long-range planning staff is looking at, and scooters are a part of that assessment in protecting both the pedestrians on the sidewalk, cars, and the scooter riders themselves. But at this time, there's no specific infrastructure project in place to accommodate scooter riders in the bike lanes. Currently, they'll be using the existing bike lanes in the city or on the streets.
Okay, thank you. I have, just before we ask the other commissioners, Kobe, you said it's a pilot. Does that mean, how long does that last? And does that mean their city council is going to vote if they're going to do the scooters, or what's going on there? Is it?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so the pilot was for 18 months and it ends, or the pilot is set to end on December 31st of this year. So just over 6 more months of the pilot. And then Paige and I are planning to go back to council with an update and looking for direction at one of the future council meetings.
Okay, let's keep going with our commissioners. Commissioner Balbone.
Thank you. Let me put my hand down. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I've lowered my hand. I have a couple of questions. In the report, it said the furniture zone, and that's not a phrase that I'm familiar with. It sounded weird, but is that what you call the area between the sidewalk and the street?
Yeah, it's a place reserved that you might see benches or trash cans, that sort of area. So it's not in the walkway itself. It's to the side.
Okay. And I read that those are areas that are acceptable for scooters to be stored, you know, many times there are other things in that space, and that's also where people exit cars. So I was just a little confused, and, you know, seems like a good spot until you realize that in some of our streets, there's nothing, there's no place for that scooter to go. So that's helpful. Thank you. And I'd probably like to understand if there are certain areas where that's just not an acceptable option because there's too much there and it would actually congest parking and other things. And then, you know, my second question is, I know that I've seen scooter companies picking up the scooters, especially early in the morning when I'm out walking. What I don't understand is what their commitment might be to the city, especially for those scooters that are lying around and that are blocking the right of way to our bus lanes, our bus areas, because we do have a lot of citizens who come to our meetings. And, you know, there are probably spots, and it's not a fully formed thought, but I'd like for us to consider this. There are areas where limited access means somebody has no access at all. And I would say areas around some of our supermarkets, areas around some of our bus stops. Those areas need to be clean for people with disabilities because that's their mobility option. And I know that I pass in front of City Hall and there are times when it gets very congested with the scooters. So I'm just curious if there's any special provisions for high trafficked areas for these folks to come out and clear them on a regular basis so that we don't have scooters lying around.
Yeah, I'll address the second question. I think, I'm not sure if you still were curious about the furniture zone, or maybe I can ask you to rephrase the first question, but.
Oh, I think I answered that one, Kobe.
Yeah, I think I'm good there.
Okay.
You know, it's just a consideration. There are some furniture zones, which is a new one on me. So thank you for teaching me something. Some of them aren't accessible. There's plantings there. There's, you know, other things there. So, but that's beside the point. Just considering sometimes there's not an option in the neighborhood, so it's going to end up on the sidewalk.
Yeah, so that's, I'll briefly touch on that. So each operator is required to submit a parking plan where they deploy their devices every morning and then they rebalance them. Rebalancing is when you would pick up a device that may be left by a user somewhere else, and then they'll repark it someplace where their own internal metrics are telling them there's a need for it. And their parking plans are designed to put them in a way that is compliant with our city, with the pilot permit. And then Paige and I, and previously Rachel, would look at their parking plan and make sure it's not interfering with any of the things that you mentioned, because you're right, there are areas of the furniture zone that are congested and there's a lot of things going on. Where you may see issues is when a user ends their ride and they just pull over and they leave it in a furniture zone or in a walkway. And that's where the scooter companies have up to, they have 2 hours to come pick up a device that has been reported as left impeding a path of travel, a sidewalk, a crosswalk. And in addition, we have contracted with ABM. They're the city's parking facilities operator. They run our parking garages and lots. We also hired them to help us keep an eye and pick up these wayward devices that may be abandoned, or even from other companies that aren't allowed to be doing business in the city. And they do sweeps using a dashboard that is pulling information from all the different companies. And it tells them every morning where there are devices, how long they've been left out. And then they will design a route based on the need. And they'll actually drive around in a van. You may have seen it, maybe you haven't, but it's a big, I want to say it's a Ford or a transit van that's branded with the city's logo and a phone number. And they drive around and they pick up those devices. They'll put them in the back of the van and they'll put them in a parking station or park them in a way that's out of the way. If it's a device that's not part of the program, they'll actually go and relocate it to outside of the city of West Hollywood. So there's a couple of different things that are being done. Sometimes it can be tough to keep up, but typically they get to different complaints and hotspots within 20 minutes, I believe, is their estimated time to arrive. And then in addition to being reactive, they're proactive by using that dashboard where they're getting information and kind of targeting hotspots every day.
Commissioner Hallman, I'm not sure which was first. Commissioner Hallman, I think.
Chair, Commissioner, Vice Chair Roche was actually before me.
Okay, Vice Chair Roche, sorry.
I don't mind. We're all going to get through this together. Honestly, I know we've had this conversation about this very specific topic for a very long time. And even with understanding the system of how the company is trying their best to handle it, so much of this is going to come down to the user responsibility. And there needs to be more accountability on an individual level as well. And I don't think leaning on LASD is the right option. They have other things they need to be focusing on, but I wonder why we're not asking the companies directly that we have this contract with, or multiple contracts with, depending on how many companies the city is working with this pilot program. Why those remaining docking stations weren't installed initially up front, why they're slowly being rolled out versus why they weren't part of the first phase, if this is only a short-term pilot. And then I think the demand on behalf of the companies is to consider increasing a direct fee to the individual who are abusing this service, even though I guess I'm just trying to think of other ways to deter the individual from blocking and creating physical hazards for so many aspects of our community. And relying on the companies themselves to try to navigate our cities, especially during rush hour. I mean, it is hard to move through the city with the amount of traffic and congestion. So I wonder if there's a way that the contract can be updated directly, specifically for within the boundaries of the city and I hate charging people on an individual basis, but if they're going to abuse a service, there should be accountability there. And maybe we can see maybe there could be an actual impact, maybe a reduction in leaving these scooters in places they're not supposed to, specifically if they don't have access to a docking station that's close by. I mean, that will maybe determine if they're able to actually use the scooter. I don't know if they're going to be that forward thinking about it, but just something else, another way to approach this as a solution, since as much as do we have these companies just hanging out on various blocks waiting for people to dump these scooters, because they will. And I would hate to see folks who have disabilities wait around for 30 minutes until somebody can actually get there to move it, if nobody else around is actually supporting them and moving these out of the way. So I foresee this being a continuous problem, despite what the company is able to do. And I wonder if there's a way to create a solution individually as well as systematically. Thank you.
Go ahead, Colby.
Sorry, quickly, just on the docking stations, the city is being responsible for rolling that out. They've been rolled out in phases just due to the small team that is working on this, where we first rolled out with a predetermined set of stations where we used data collected from the WeHo Pedals bike share system from a few years ago. And we used that to kind of lay a foundation. And then as the program grew and more information and data was collected in terms of where people were picking up and dropping off, we were using those data points to then build out this station or this network of stations rather than the opposite way. So that is kind of why you may be seeing it rolled out slowly or in phases, is that it's right now it's just Paige and myself, and then we work with facilities and engineering to get the stations installed. And then we're also relying on the data, and as it grows and we get more information and we can make those informed decisions, we go out and then we'll install more stations. And then regarding deterrence and direct fees, it's a little different than the WeHo Pedals system that we had a few years ago, where the city had complete control over it, and we could implement different types of requirements. We had our own terms of service. We were in explicit control over those types of things. Here, the council directed us to engage different operators, and it's really where we are assisting with the administration, but we're not in control of the business models. Each company has their own very unique business model. And while we can certainly suggest or recommend or even ask of it, it's just a little, the way it's currently set up is a little different. So we don't have that same type of control over each of the companies. Now, this is a pilot and we're evaluating each of the companies in terms of the responsiveness and how they're handling these things. And all of these things are in their interest in terms of possibly what happens next is if they are to continue doing business, it's in their interest to address these concerns. But right now we don't have that specific control over them.
Kobe, and this while our commissioners are asking these questions, and this will go to Danny and our sheriffs and Kobe. What I'm hearing from our residents, the problem is not our things that we're doing, and it sounds really good in the back that we're doing behind the scenes, is that the residents it's not apparent that there's enforcement. So is there a way that you can make it more apparent? They want to see an officer out there giving somebody tickets. They want to see these guys being stopped that are riding on the sidewalks. They want to see somebody jumping out there and grabbing those scooters off the sidewalks. That's the problem, is they are not seeing anything being done. They want to see some action. So it may be happening behind the scenes, but it's not apparent. So maybe that can be something you guys can think about as how to make that more apparent and more visual. Okay, Commissioner Hallman.
Thank you, Chair Berger. What I'm not hearing here in this equation is the word safety. It baffles me how we started a pilot program such as this without putting restrictions on said companies. I walk my dog 3 times a day. I've almost been clipped several times by a scooter. I think there's an issue with speed. Riders have a disregard for pedestrians. And I spent a great deal of time in the Netherlands. It is a bike and scooter culture. They don't have these problems. You also don't see scooter rubbish littering the streets, bike rubbish. Why can't we get this right? If we were going to start a program like this, I think we should have put a little more thought into it. Because pedestrians, I mean, we're almost basically saying to pedestrians, you might as well walk in the middle of Santa Monica Boulevard and take your chances, because that's exactly what you're doing on the sidewalk when you encounter a scooter. So I just need someone to explain this to me, because it's not making sense. Thank you, Chair.
Does somebody want to answer that, Kobe?
Certainly. So definitely, Commissioner Hallman, I hear you. And it's one of the things that we're actively working on with the companies in terms of the emerging technology. So there are parameters and there are restrictions that are in the permit. Sidewalk riding is not allowed. The speed of the scooters is capped. I believe it's 15 miles an hour. These things are governed by the state. It's all in the vehicle code. However, so like the speed is easily controllable through the companies and technology. Sidewalk riding up until now has been a little bit more challenging because that was up to the user. So there's kind of a dual type of issue going on here. It's whether or not the companies are being compliant, and then you've got user behavior. And recently, the companies that we've been working with and a couple others that are in the LA area have come out with new devices where they're able to actually control sidewalk riding remotely, stop a device if a user is exhibiting dangerous behavior, cutting and zipping and zagging and doing different things, it can automatically slow it down. These are being currently tested out. It's still very new. There's certain pilots, I want to say in Long Beach and Venice, and also a few of these devices have been deployed in West Hollywood. So we are optimistic that the companies have heard us and have heard not just West Hollywood, but the region and the country very loud and clear. And we'll be seeing more of these devices in the very near future. And I believe we'll be seeing them before the end of the year. Thank you.
Do we have a timeline on this? Like when all of this is going to be completed? Because again, I believe a lot of this should have been implemented before we started this pilot program. Some of these things should have been discussed up front. We always seem to be chasing our tails here. And it's at the risk of public safety.
Yeah, understood. Each of the companies is a little different, but I do believe at least 2 of the 3 have committed to having the devices updated before the end of the year. So the end of this calendar year.
Okay, we have, I don't know who is this phone number, 310-402.
I'm waiting to speak. It's Danny.
Commissioner Roman?
Yeah. Hey, everybody.
Go ahead.
So just really quick, I was on video in protest because 3 months ago, City Council told us we were going back to live meetings. Then they canceled last month's meeting. Then they told us that this meeting's going on Zoom. City Council are their essential workers. They left two and a half years ago, and they refused to come back to work. And if we didn't need them during a global pandemic, when do we need them? And so I want to be in a real meeting looking at commissioners and looking at the public and looking at city employees and talking directly to them and not on a camera in my house. So if they're not going to give us the respect to come back to work and hold these meetings, everything is open. Everything has been open. Then I don't think that I need to sit here and be on camera with you. I could be doing other things. I just was getting emails from Melissa Crowder while we were on here, and Manny Rodriguez was asking if I was coming on. Melissa promised that next meeting will be live, so I'm back. We'll see how that goes, though. As far as these dockless scooter stuff, so just to give you guys some history, back in the day, there were trains running all through West Hollywood. They parked at the Pacific Design Center. There were bicycle highways all over LA. So you could get on a bike and literally be elevated off the street and cruise out to the beach and spin around the city. Car companies came in, bought everything, and then shut it down and paved over all the train tracks, ripped down the bicycle highways, and made our city a car mecca. Okay, they tried to do the same thing in Amsterdam. They wanted to fill the canals with cement and make everything big parking lots and streets. And the people from Amsterdam stood up and fought. And that's why Amsterdam, Commissioner Hallman, is a bike mecca. Okay, so now here we are today. The year is 2022. People 35 years and younger don't want to drive. They want to be conscious. They want to be environmentally conscious. They want to do the right thing. The city of West Hollywood is now looking at putting protected, and don't call them bike lanes. It makes me furious when you guys refer to them as bike lanes. They're not bike lanes. They are for scooters. They are for runners. They are for unicyclists. They are for skateboarders and roller skaters and bicycles and the scooters that everybody hates. So they're for everything. They're not for bicycles. We need to build a safe way for these people to get around, not just for cars and not just for people walking. These people are just as important. Okay, a guy just got killed in Griffith Park a couple of weeks ago. One just got killed a few days ago. So, people on that with the scooters, they're not getting killed. Yeah, Lauren Meister's sister, that was horrible. I can't even watch the video. And so we need to build these lanes, and we need to make this a priority. And Kobe, the launching of the scooters before making these official parking spots for them is what's causing all this right now. So we need to build everything and build it the best, and then launch everything. When it's built, it's kind of like launching cars and not having roads. So you need to build this infrastructure, and you need to make sure that all these people that I mentioned, the runners, the scooter, the roller skater, the biker, the wheelchair person, we need to give them an amazing way to get around the city. And in order to do that, we're going to have to make some sacrifices, taking away some parking, reducing car lanes in certain areas. We need to take back this city, and we need to create a village-like feel. So when people come here, they know they can walk around. We're already the most walkable city in California. We could do even better. And so that's what we need to work towards. So maybe we have to put a pin in these scooters until Bob Chung and his department does these studies, gets city council to approve it, and we start building these cool new, whatever you want to call them. They're not bike lanes, but you can call them whatever you want. They're not bike lanes. Alternative transport, I don't know. And so we need to build this stuff, and then we need to launch everything. And we need to get people out of cars, and we need to make the city not a pass-through city for people commuting, coming out from Laurel, going down to the studios or whatever. This city is being used as just like a zooming through it and getting to where you need to go. And so that's what we need to do. It's pretty clear. It's just, you have to build it. You can't just launch scooters all over the place and not have parking for them and not have safe lanes for them to go on. You can't expect them to just fly down the middle of the street. It's super dangerous. And I don't think accidents are that high.
Thank you, Commissioner Roman. So we've heard a couple of times commissioners are saying that you guys should have done it differently. So maybe you can remember that for the next time. Now we are in this situation until December, the end of December, for this pilot. Commissioners, what can we do now? What kind of actions can we do now? Commissioner Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. So I did want to follow up on some of what other commissioners and Kobe and Paige, what you have reported on. I think that the best cure for this, like I want this to win. I want it to be a win-win. I want people to have this as an option and for it to be viable. But in this conversation, seniors and people living with disabilities have to be front and center and not an afterthought, as with every conversation in our city. So prevention, I think, is going to be the best cure for the kind of issues that we're seeing. And how do we do that? Kobe, you mentioned kind of going to the company and then the companies, them voluntarily working with the city in terms of identifying who the problematic users are. I think that needs to be, that relationship needs to be formalized and needs to be strengthened, so that it's not, if there are problematic users, the same way, they don't have, scooters don't have license plates like cars do. If a car were parked across the sidewalk, parking enforcement in West Hollywood would be there in 5 minutes, and that vehicle would be cited. Because there's no license plate, the only way that we have to enforce this is if we can identify the user. And the only way that we can identify the user is if the company is working with the city. So I think that has to be built into any ongoing contract. And then Kobe, you mentioned that the devices are specified or specific to the city. So there are outside devices and then devices that are part of the contract. Can the devices that are part of the contract have the contact info to report the sidewalk blocked or an improperly parked scooter on the scooter itself, so that anyone with a cell phone can call on that? And
Just real quick, they have identification numbers similar to license plate. They're not hanging down like a license plate, but if you go up to a scooter, you'll see it usually on the stem of the handle by the handlebars or down by the base plate. So if you see somebody riding poorly and then you don't want to obviously confront them, but you see the device they're on, you can take a picture of that and send it into, and I send it into parkingconcerns@weho.org. You can send it to me directly or Paige, or I will actually email over a phone number that you can call, and there's different ways you can report it, and we can look into it specifically and report it to the company.
Thank you. And so I think my feedback is that for this to be successful, it has to be based on accountability. And it does not appear that the accountability measures in place now are working and solving the issues that seniors and people living with disabilities have come over and over to this commission to tell us are an issue and front and center in their daily lives. So thank you.
And that's a good point. Go ahead, Director Rivas.
Yes, thank you. And good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Public Safety Commission, Danny Rivas, City West Hollywood Director of Community Safety. I just wanted to jump in. I know that this item was placed on the agenda as consent item. It is received in file. However, certainly hearing all of the commissioners' input and feedback, I'd like to recommend to the commission that we have a commissioner agendize this for the next meeting. And as a part of that item, we can certainly take actionable recommendations, such as maybe putting together a memo on behalf of the entire commission that will outline in detail all of the concerns, right, and input and feedback that's been shared today, and even at the next meeting. And then that memo will be going to the city council, again, on behalf of the Public Safety Commission. So I know one of the commissioners had mentioned, what type of action could be taken. At this point, this is not an actionable item. However, we can add it to the agenda, right, for the next meeting in July, where we would be able to do something like that, if that would make sense and is amenable to the commission.
Thank you. Thank you,
Happy
Director.
to make a motion.
Second.
Okay,
Does
we
the
have
public get to speak?
That would be the point. By agendizing it, we'd be able to create an opportunity for the public to return and voice all their concerns.
We can do it by consensus since it wasn't an action item.
But there are issues just talked about that the public should be able to speak.
Okay, let's let the public speak. We've only got Michael Vojkolevich left as the public. Go ahead, Michael, you've been waiting.
Thank you, Tori. It's Michael Vojkolevich. I'm coming into this conversation a little bit late, but what I caught, I think, deserves comment. First of all, with regards to Pacific Electric and the red car, these apparatus were wholly inaccessible to those disabled back in the day. Even those that had wherewithal for their ability to be mobile, the tracks were tripping hazards, public nuisance came in the form of noise, and then even public safety was an issue. And that is why many of the streets running north-south, crossing Santa Monica within West Hollywood, are offset. So a vehicle doesn't try to beat the train because a street would just be straight through. You would have to stop, you would have to offset the vehicle by a turn here, a turn there. Now, infrastructure, it's all about the infrastructure. And this is what the city, the county, and commissions like this one has failed at. I know many of the public, and although there is an element of truth as to the results, the tools that are needed to get results never come into consideration by the city and its commissions. This conversation tonight is like the gender-neutral bathroom conversation that just enveloped so much time on multiple commissions, multiple boards, and after the fact, it still is a problem. You want to talk about human nature? Why don't you talk about the example West Hollywood sets up. The vehicles are parked in the fire lane at the robot garage. At a PrEP and PEP Human Service Commission in 2015 that I attended, the talk amongst tables, inclusive of human services commissioners, was that gay men have a duty to infect another gay man unknowingly with HIV. You all are the example that has been set. This is a generation of people now that it's like hands off my body, no respect, no civility, and you're trying to correct longstanding issues that have been allowed by dicking around with this, that, and the other thing. The fact is, you know, you don't promote scooter ownership. I have one. Only problem I've ever had were with two professional bicyclists. I ride the street. Half of the 1,200 miles that I've gone was in the company of a miniature Schnauzer that I felt fine and safe. So these dreadful, you know, Hindenburg-esque scenarios that keep being played out by certain people, just not true. And I do want to just leave. Okay. Thank you, Tori.
Thank you, Michael. Commissioners, we do have a motion on the floor, but I want to give those who have their hand up still, and no more, please, a time to speak. Do you want to go through with the motion, or do you feel like you need to speak before we go through with this motion?
Chair, if you don't mind me, so sorry. I just want us to be mindful of time as well. I don't see that the blue sky timer's on when we're taking public comments, and maybe we want to consider reducing that time to maybe a minute. I'm totally open to hear additional public comments, but maybe now that we're at 7 o'clock, maybe we figure out how to manage the rest of the comments.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. You can actually, and that will be staff. We have a new staff person on that, but you can see the timer. It's just right underneath the words of the Public Safety Commission, the black square.
Oh, I see. I'm used to the blue that's visible. Thank
but
you.
I hear you. Yes, but I want to be respectful. So we're gonna let's listen to the comments that people have right now, their hands up, and then we'll go through with the motion. So I believe Commissioner Balbone, you were next, and then we'll go with Stephanie Harker.
I support the motion. And the one thing that I would like to ask for so that we can put something forward to the city is just understanding the various remedies and solutions. I know we talked about them tonight, the technology and all of that. I'd like a staff report on some of the modernization that these various companies are coming up with, because I think some of those are really viable solutions. And when corporations and other business owners get a hint for what the public wants, including the demand for safety around these scooters and devices, both for the people on them and for our residents, it's going to help. And I think we could really push and promote those if we have a full list of all of the things available, what we're doing today, and then the things that they're piloting and looking at. So that's the one thing that I'd like to put around that ask so that we can read about that and come with ideas.
Thank you, Commissioner Balbone. And let's go with Stephanie Harker. Michael Vojkolevich, I think your hand is still up on yours. Stephanie Harker.
Thank you, Chair Berger. Stephanie Harker, City of West Hollywood. Yes, this is, of course, safety is paramount, as we all know. And I wanted to just agree with former speakers, Manny Rodriguez and Yola Doré. I too have almost been mowed down. And then when I shrieked because it came from the rear and didn't expect it, I was sworn at. Well, I'm sure he didn't expect the response he got from an old lady like myself. But if you give it out, you should be able to take it. But anyway, he's probably still talking about the old lady who flipped him off. But I really wanted to, on the serious side, thank Alana Roche, Vice Chair Roche, because human nature is human nature. Extra docks probably will not do the trick. It's a good idea. They should have been there before, as Commissioner Danny, I'm forgetting your last name. Anyway, Commissioner Danny, I like that. there was the dock right here at Plummer Park. I have a photo of a scooter lying across the street within 30 feet of that dock. So that's not the answer. I see children riding these, young children riding these on the sidewalk, no helmets, don't have a driver's license, but they're driving a motorized vehicle on the sidewalk. I think the accountability needs to come from the companies, the scooter companies. They know who's riding this. If they go out and pick it up across the sidewalk, that person should get the citation, the person who left it there. If they don't, with no accountability, no fine, no ticket, no whatever, and do these kids' parents know that they're riding these unsafely out on the streets? The parents should be responsible in those cases. And if the city of West Hollywood has no access to the riders, then people responsible for whom does have access, they should be handing out the fines. It's the only way. If I keep parking my car in front of a hydrant and I never get a ticket, is that ever going to stop me? No, it's not. And that's just the way things are. So thank you for agendizing this for your next meeting. I hope you, the council approved this pilot program in the first place. So I think the realities need to be faced, and that is that there needs to be accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie Harker. And before we vote, if you guys bring something back, can you think of like very low resolution, something that's very obvious that you're taking action? We don't, just red plastic poles with tape to make a bike lane kind of a situation, something that where people can see it. People can see that you're making movement ahead, even if you're doing it behind the scenes. They're not seeing it. Our residents need to see some enforcement. Commissioner Roman, can you
just really quick, Kobe, you can ask block by block to add it to what they do, to when they see a scooter blocking, to hop off their bike and move it. That's like, I'm just thinking of quick fixes. Like that's a quick one. We just tell them we'd like them to start doing this. They're all over town. When they see one, move it out of the way.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We can just do this by consensus? Does anybody oppose the motion that was put forward? Okay, the motion passes. It will be on our next agenda, correct? We have the CPE at our next agenda, but this can be on our next agenda. Danny, you can bring that back to us?
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. We'll work on making sure that this item is brought back to you next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Does anybody have any commissioner comments? Okay, let's go ahead on then to new business. 9A, Vision Zero Action Plan. I believe we had...
Chair, I think there are hands raised for commissioner comments.
Commissioner, thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Balbone.
Commissioner Oliver was first.
Oh, Commissioner Oliver.
Sure, thank you. Well, good evening, fellow commissioners, and welcome, Danny. It's good to see everyone, and thank you for everyone who spoke tonight. First, just wanted to say great Pride. It was a lot of fun. I felt proud. West Hollywood Pride was fantastic, and we had another one last weekend. So thank you to everyone who came out, and also thank you to everyone who kept Pride safe, both in West Hollywood and outside. There were countless people working behind the scenes to make sure that we had 2 successful events with no major incidents. A recent headline out of Idaho gave me a reminder of the kinds of threats that our community faces. And on that note, since our meeting months ago in which we made budget recommendations to City Council, I've taken time to speak with members of the community from all backgrounds and walks of life. It seems like everyone agrees that the sheriff's department should be transparent and accountable to us in the community. And at the same time, that social services and mental health resources are vital to public safety. And I agree with that sentiment. At the same time, we have heard an outpouring of concern regarding that recommendation to reduce funding and eliminate deputies from our sheriff's contract. As a city, I think we have the resources to both maintain funding for an accountable and transparent sheriff's contract, as well as, importantly, further expand our social services and mental health resources. We are a fortunate city in West Hollywood to not have to choose between addressing crime and providing for the most vulnerable in our community. While these conversations are sometimes difficult, they are incredibly important to our role as a community-facing and citizen-led commission, whose job is to inform the city council on the input that we're receiving on issues of public safety. So our city council is meeting in just a couple of weeks to hold budget discussions, and that is where the actual decisions about funding allocations will be made. I believe it is our responsibility to update the council on the feedback that we're receiving, which is why I'm mentioning this, since it is our last meeting before the real and final budget decisions are made. It is after considerable feedback and time for us as a community to reflect on the previous commission recommendation that I want to make clear that I do not believe that the city council should reduce funding or remove deputies from our sheriff's contract, that I'm fully supportive of expanding social services and mental health resources because law enforcement alone cannot make our communities safer. And I think that ultimately what we need is culturally competent and trauma-informed responses to the issues that law enforcement cannot and should not be addressing. And ultimately, I think we need to stop asking sworn law enforcement officers to act as homeless liaisons, as social workers, psychiatrists, or the many roles that over time have just been shifted to law enforcement. I encourage our city council to identify other sources of revenue that can fund these vital additional resources. And in general, I'm confident that as a city, we can move forward productively together as a community on this. And ultimately, I think we won't always agree on every detail, but at the end of the day, what we want is to keep our city safe. And we want to do what's best for the community. So I think we should be able to move forward respectfully as a community, even when we don't agree on everything. So I thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Oliver. Commissioner Balbone.
So I also attended the several Pride events, and I think the city did a nice job. So thank you. And I have some comments. On April 24th, we were supposed to have a special study session on nightlife safety. And anyone who attended the last council meeting, either at home or listened to it or in person, may have heard at the end of the meeting there was concern. And it's valid concern because we had a standing subcommittee between the Women's Advisory Board and our commission. And when we noticed that there were accelerated claims of drink spiking and rapes happening in our city, we asked for that session. We understood at this commission, and it was also acknowledged by the WAB, that that is not exclusively an issue that impacts women in this community. It is a broader issue. And that joint study session was supposed to be focused on bringing the broader community together. It has not been calendared as far as I know, and I would like to put a motion on the table that we formally as a commission request that that be calendared as soon as possible. We have people in our community who have been hurt including commissioners and or council advisory board members who this is directly impacted. And we have a responsibility to get this back on the calendar. So I'd like to put that forward as a motion. And then I have one other item, but that's a motion that I'd like to put forward, a formal request that that study session is scheduled.
Okay, so you want to reschedule that subcommittee, standing subcommittee study session?
It's a study session because the standing subcommittee, because of bylaws, cannot include all of the people who need to be included and voices that need to be heard. And that meeting needs to be scheduled in earnest, that study session. So I'd like for us to make a formal motion that it gets scheduled. I've personally requested it, but I think we as a commission should make sure it's requested on behalf of the entire community.
I'll second that, since I was part of that and our meeting was canceled and was inevitably postponed, unfortunately, after incredible work that we did. So thank you for that, Commissioner Balbone.
Okay, anybody want to comment on that before we vote? Oh, is Hallman, do you want to, are you okay with the vote now? I see your hand up.
Yes, sorry, Chair. Mine was my own personal commissioner comments, not on this particular topic by Commissioner.
Let's take the vote. By consensus, does anybody disagree with that? Okay, so the motion passes.
Okay, and then I have one second comment is that I have attended where I can and then watched where I wasn't able to attend the Civilian Oversight Commission meetings on May 19th and May 24th. I agree that we need a balance, but we also need to make sure that we keep an eye on the Oversight Commission and the processes for holding the Sheriff's Department and the sheriff himself accountable. There are 9,500 sworn officers within the Sheriff's Department, and the actions of a small number have been hindered. The investigations have been hindered severely. And I would like to understand specifically, and we can maybe put this on an agenda in our work plan, what we are doing to ensure that CA Penal Code 13670, which is about law enforcement gangs, is something that we ask about within our community. What I would say from attending these meetings, the prevalence of the problem seems to be localized more on the east side. I do not want to take that for granted, nor do I think that the people on the east side deserve less than what we may have happening within our city. But I would be interested, and maybe we put this on our work plan, in ways we can use our contract and our relationship to make sure, one, that we have action items taken if gangs are spotted and or there are concerns raised here in West Hollywood, and then more broadly with that organization. So I'd like to potentially talk about that when we get to our work plan, but it's just one of the things that I have been participating in that wanted to highlight.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Commissioner Balbone. I think I may have been on that meeting as well, and they're long. And it's taxing to be able to do those meetings as well as everything else we're doing. So let's bring that up in the work plan about how we're going to try to address that. Commissioner Soon-Shiong.
Hi, thank you so much. Speaking to Commissioner Oliver's comment, I want to quote something from the LA County CEO's LA County Sheriff's Department budget fact sheet. So the Sheriff's Department hired or promoted 1,900 new employees under the county's hiring freeze. It has not been prevented from hiring more deputies to serve contract cities and is yet to produce a concrete data-driven spending plan for public safety. So the reallocation of $3.2 million from the contract to social services does not imply that there will be fewer deputies on patrol in West Hollywood. And I want to say personally that I'm very proud of the conversations we've had and the motions that have passed, but I'm uncomfortable essentially being complicit in a rubber stamping exercise of the city's largest public safety expenditure. What is the purpose of this commission really, if not to be a source of legitimate information for residents? For me, it's shocking that the sheriff's allocation will actually go up by $1 million in this next budget, which is quite literally the opposite of the Public Safety Commission's motion. So we are receiving reports on data from a department that has been doing an audit of its performance in West Hollywood for over a year. And on top of that, the city is planning on conducting an independent audit of the audit for $500,000. So what does that say about the level of trust that this department has earned? By the way, we were given the 2021 costs per deputy, and I reviewed the latest budget with the city manager, including the sheriff's allocation, which has line items for helicopter surveillance and prisoner maintenance. So what we are doing is talking about reimagining policing, community policing, and electeds in the city, county, and state level have talked about CARES Court, CARES Sheriff's deputies, CARES teams, yet it is somehow inappropriate to care about law enforcement contracts, even though, as I said, this is our largest investment in public safety. So I really think it's important that we challenge the power of a department that, as Commissioner Balboa said, has 18 deputy gangs, harassed protesters at Pride, and received $500,000 to be at Pride. So the amount that the sheriff received for this 3-day Pride event exceeds the total amount of cash disbursements that will be delivered in the city's 18-month guaranteed income program. And for me, that's not what public safety looks like. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Soon-Shiong. And when we hit our work plan agenda item tonight, if you want to bring any of these kinds of things up like that, see if you can frame it within our current duties, our purview. We have several points in our purview, and if you can frame it in that, then all of us can vote on what kind of work plan items we want to address. If you don't have that, Miss Melissa maybe can send that to all of us, if some of us don't have it right now. Okay, I believe that it was Commissioner Hallman that was next.
Thank you, Chair, and I will be brief. First, I think the city, for its first WeHo Pride, did a nice job. There's always room for improvement, but I think it was a good first outing. I also want to thank the city for inviting me to participate in the city float for LA Pride. I don't know if any of you were out there, but I had a blast. And I was concerned, I'll be honest, because there has not been a Pride in Hollywood since 1970, if I'm correct. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be the Pride community in the streets and the opposing community, let's say, closer to the bars, harassing the Pride community. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought the city did a great job of integrating and getting all of the bars and restaurants involved. And I thought it was a great day. In regards to our recommendation to council, we made our recommendation to council. I as well have talked to a lot of neighbors and residents, and my purpose, I can't speak for anyone else on this commission and what their agenda was with this particular motion. Mine, again, was to upset the apple cart and to force some things to happen. I do not think, and I hate using the word defund because it's like the word, and I don't say this flippantly, but like fashionista. It is grossly misused. I think we need to be mindful of our sheriff's budget. I do not think we need to decrease deputies, but I also think we do need to put more money and focus on social services. At our last neighborhood watch meeting, when I had now Captain Mulder, congratulations, at the meeting, I had Corey Plank to explain how homeless outreach is done. The Met team was there. The look on all of the residents' faces that I saw from standing in the front and conducting the meeting was, we don't have any options here. It's like the deck is stacked against us. I hope that whatever that council decides is not to continue that feeling of remorse for the community. we need to be mindful of everyone, our unhoused, but as well as our residents. And we need law enforcement. We just have to be governed by some type of rule. Are there problems with the way law enforcement works sometimes? Yes. But I think we've sent our recommendation forward. I hope the correct measures are taken here now at this point. But I would love personally for us to move forward, still be mindful of budgets and what the sheriff is doing, because that is our responsibility. But I think we have other things we need to focus on as a commission. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, you're muted.
It says
I
Tori
will go
left.
ahead. I'm going to
I think we
continue the
lost
meeting.
him.
Yeah, I'm going to continue the meeting while he signs back on. Commissioner Roman?
Yep. So, to Commissioner Oliver's point, I used to think police meant, oh yeah, more police and we're going to be safer. And then I started to read the police reports that get sent out each week. So I don't know if anybody caught last week's, but there were 80 crimes reported in West Hollywood. 0 arrests. Not one arrest, and 80 crimes reported. Out of those 80, 60 were pickpockets in the clubs. The pickpockets in the clubs started 7 years ago, and they have not done anything. So when you think about police do not prevent crime and they don't solve it. And I think that we all need to start wrapping our heads around that. You listen to what Nika says, and I don't know, do you actually listen to what she's saying? It's not bullshit. These are real reports. So we need to step into the year 2022, understand that police, if you just look, it's not me, it's not Nika, it's literally the police releasing it. And they release a report every week of all the crimes. Read it. It takes 2 seconds. And you look at the end and it tells you the arrests. And it was 0. And last week there was 68 crimes with 1 arrest. And it was because it was a neighbor and they just went to the person's house. So put more police do not prevent, and they don't stop it. I would rather spend that $3.5 million and put 100 more block by block people out there. Have them on every fucking corner in the city. That actually works, because just seeing those people everywhere, a criminal is gonna think again. And what's going on in the bars and the cell phone theft and all this stuff that's going on, and the police refuse to do anything. You're not on these emails. I'm literally after them every week. Huge emails to Mulder and CCing all council and David and everybody, and begging them to please do a sting, go in there. And they won't do it. They just won't do it. And so at some point you have to say, why are we spending $25 million paying these people just because we think that we're safe with them here? We're not. They don't do shit. A guy robbed my building the other day. We got him on camera. He has a tattoo going down his leg, a Jesus Christ going all the way. How hard is it? We sent the cops the video. Then I posted it on Nextdoor, and somebody wrote back and wrote, this guy lives across the street from me. 14, whatever, right here. So I sent it to Mulder. Can
at
you
this
please go to
point,
his house? Hold on. No,
at this point, you're on a personal tirade.
No,
and
I
there's
don't
a
care if
code
it's a
of
personal
conduct.
tirade.
There's
Hold
a
on,
code
I'm
of
not done.
conduct
I'm
that
not
we have
done.
all
Okay, they're not
agreed to
arresting
abide
people.
by.
They're not arresting people.
And
okay?
you've made your point. You've made your point. We don't need to keep
you know what?
hearing you over and over again.
You haven't even heard this story. I gave them the address of the guy and they didn't arrest him. They didn't go there and arrest him. We have him on video.
You've made your point, Danny.
So Commissioner
at
Oliver's
some point,
the Commissioner Oliver's point, okay, more police, they don't do anything for us. Okay, look at the reports and then make an educated decision based on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and sorry, everybody. I'm losing the connection. Sorry, Chair Shea, if I lose it again, please take on.
Yeah, you are staticky. Commissioner,
Yeah,
Commissioner
Chair.
Burton.
Yeah, Chair. I'm sorry. This is Danny Rivas. Yeah, maybe you could try logging off and then logging back on, and in the interim, maybe Vice Chair, if you wouldn't mind continuing with the meeting. And I just, you know, before we continue with the meeting, you know, certainly understand and respect every commissioner's perspective and input, but I am asking every single commissioner to please be respectful, especially when you're using the type of language and your choice of words. It's very important, both as us as staff and as commissioners, to make sure that we are communicating, expressing ourselves. That's what the commission is for. But let's just please be mindful as well of each other and just be respectful. And I'm confident that we're going to continue to flow through the rest of the meeting. I know Chair is having some technology issues. And then Vice Chair, if you would continue, I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Danny. Welcome to the commission.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Thank you.
I will say my own commissioner comments right now. And I just want to thank everybody for showing up today. I know that we were all looking forward to being in person. I know we were all looking forward to the last meeting. That was canceled. I was looking forward to that subcommittee meeting with Commissioner Albaum. That was canceled. A lot of cancellations have happened in the last 2 months, and I know that it's extremely frustrating. It resonates with me. So it's 7:30. I want to make sure that we make it through our agenda today. And I know, and Chair, let me just run this through the next item, and then I'll pass it back to you once you know for sure your connection is stable. So with that in mind, are there any further commissioner comments? Can we move? Everyone's okay with moving forward? Okay, great. So moving right along, our next agenda item is new business, 9A, Vision Zero Action Plan Task Force. So the subject is the Public Safety Commission is asked to appoint one commissioner to serve on this task force. Has everyone had a chance to read about the Zero Action Plan Task Force? Does anyone have any questions about this before we appoint someone?
We have, do we have, okay, so we have some public comments on this.
Is this a public comment regarding this item, or is it a comment regarding this item? Is there a way for us to know?
Yeah, we had actually, yes, we did have some people sign up for this. So I know Michael Vojkolevich was on, he had signed up for this one, and Kevin Burton, if you can be next. Michael Vojkolevich, go ahead.
Yes, and I'll do it within 2 minutes. Excuse me, Michael Vojkolevich, City West Hollywood. Thank you, Chair. This Zero Initiative obviously reminded me of the Zero Initiative when it came to HIV. And again, you know, I have not spoken about this before, but commissioners, City of West Hollywood, talking, go out, you have a duty to infect your fellow gay people. So I really wonder the truth behind this Zero Initiative. And just a reminder for anyone who recently joined, this is not the Gay Pride Parade Commission. This is public safety. And Vice Chair Rochelle, maybe you need to understand the word public. If you're so offended by the public giving comment, maybe you should reduce your time and your colleagues' time of repeating things that they have said ad nauseum or find another thing that one of the council members can handpick you for. But you should be thankful that even a few public, take it upon themselves and put up with this circus, whether it's techno or language. Why are people from the public admonished when they use such language, but one of your colleagues is just, going off, free will? Anyway, that is it. This commission could not represent the city of West Hollywood anymore. I thought Human Services was bad. You guys take the cake. Happy Pride.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Kevin Burton?
Thank you, Chair Berger. I'm Kevin Burton, a resident of West Hollywood, and I'm with the West Hollywood Bicycle Coalition. And I just want to support the commission's appointing a member to the Vision Zero Action Plan Task Force. Vision Zero is an overarching policy and implementation effort that brings together many departments and planning and transportation safety efforts to reduce serious injury and fatalities on the city's streets. This type of effort is currently very active in many cities around the country, and it would be good to see West Hollywood come on board as directed by City Council. And it was previously, Commissioners Oliver and Roman mentioned discussions of installing Class 4 bicycle or mobility lanes on Fountain End or Santa Monica. That kind of effort would be part of this discussion. And that, with regard to the discussion of scooters, many scooter users, whatever the reality may be, are very frightened of riding on the streets. And so I am completely confident that if there were more protected mobility lanes in town, many fewer scooter users would be inclined to use the sidewalks. So I hope you appoint somebody who is engaged with transportation safety and will also come back and report fully to the commission about the progress of this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Commissioners, do you want to, anybody want to volunteer for this task force? Commissioner Roman, are you interested? Commissioner Oliver, do you want to volunteer?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sure, I'd love to volunteer.
Okay. I guess you're the only one, so we appreciate you doing this, Commissioner Oliver. Thank you. Let's move on to unfinished business. Report from the fire department. I believe we had a public comment. Was it Michael Vojkolevich? Yeah, Michael Vojkolevich signed up for public comment. Do you still want a public comment, Michael?
Tori, is fire going to give their talk, or are they not there?
Do you want a public comment after them? Let's see if they're
absolutely.
Here. Chief, are you on? Yeah, Chief Drew Smith, you on?
I am. Well, good evening, West Hollywood. First, I want to start with West Hollywood Pride was very favorable for everybody. Your fire and law did an outstanding job. We were very pleased with how the event went on the incident management side of the house. And I appreciate West Hollywood that was involved in our briefings and the communication levels that we had. So I want to thank everybody very much for the partnership. Looking into May, I didn't see anything that was extraordinary besides our medical runs were somewhat up, and we did have continuous outdoor fires that did have potential. So we had 14 of those in the month of May. And so those, especially as we get into the summer months, they become more prevalent to start other fires that start on the outside, extending into structures. So as I've talked about time and time again, that is a high concern of ours. And your West Hollywood firefighters are healthy, they're happy, and we're proud to be there. I have Megan Curtis also on as a liaison. Yeah, she has anything else to add, and then we'll entertain any comments or questions that you may have.
I don't have anything additional. I think you covered it all.
Thank you, Megan.
Okay, thank you. Let's go with Michael Vojkolevich now. You're on mute, Michael.
Can you hear me now? Okay, there we go. Good evening once again. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that our county fire got to celebrate Gay Pride festivities. I only wish they gave as much time to those residents who are they were supposed to serve within the city. As some of you may know, the fire department absconded their duties, their responsibilities in 2010 when it came to a sign-off for a residential building that serves a 100% population, special needs, those living with disabilities. Basic life safety code was ignored. Fire sensors were installed wrong. Building alarm on the outside, traditional red bell that you will see on almost every building in new residential project, missing. So, and then when they come and they give presentation as this thing called public outreach, they lie, just like the former person who oversaw this commission, Kristen Cook. She lied to the public during this meeting, and all of you, past, present, and future, allow it. Just like you allowed Ruth Williams to get into her little Uber, parked in the fire lane right outside City Hall. You know, during the meeting, she was this accessibility, that accessibility, but you know, when it came to convenience, Uber, first place, red zone, there's probably a fire hydrant there. That's where Ruth Williams saw herself entitled. So the fact is this. You're going to call out that, you better call out this, and you better start doing your homework. And county fire, you know, I hope the view down Hollywood or Santa Monica equaled the view that you get sitting atop your little fire station at the corner of Santa Monica and what is it? It's not Genesee, it's Spalding. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Prayers out to Ruth Williams. She's in fighting for her life. Commissioner Oliver.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely thinking about Ruth tonight. And I did want to thank Captain Smith and Megan. I ran into both of you at Pride. You were there late into the evening, keeping an eye on things. So thank you for being there, and thanks for supporting a great and incident-free event.
Thank you.
Commissioner Balbone.
I just wanted to ask about the fire. It's one of the ones that has caused the most damage in recent history on April 10th. It was over on San Vicente. And I know that you were investigating it. Is there any more on the cause of that? Because I know a couple of businesses were impacted, and I know at least one is still closed.
Correct. So they're still within the investigation process with our organization, all Los Angeles Sheriff's arson. So that is still ongoing. Arson or potential cause, those are challenging when you don't have a witness to tell potentially how something started and spread, but without the eyewitness or fact on the how on the point of origin is very challenging to possibly come to a conviction. So that is still in process with the investigation component of that fire.
Okay, thank you. And I know with that one, there were also gas tanks that somehow got involved, but if you don't know the origin.
Right, we know where
Who
it
knows?
started. It's just they're doing the fact finding, and we have some very sophisticated equipment and even our arson dogs, if you will. We know how it started. We just don't know the who behind it a lot of times, and that's what they're doing the investigation on.
Okay, thank you. But it sounds like the suspicion is arson.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's just not, everything's open. It's just not ruled out yet until we rule it out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to item 10B, report from Block by Block Security. Do we have Michael Vojkolevich signed up for 10B? Michael, do you still want to speak on this?
Yeah, Tori, and I'll do it now because both this and sheriffs, I think, well, just hear me out. So with regards to block by block, if I heard correctly a while back during this meeting, you are now being asked to do scooter pickup. And one of the commissioners thought instead of upping the budget or keeping the budget to the sheriffs, that 300 more block by block people would be of worthwhileness. Those who push the boundaries, again, of what I refer to as civilized society, know the limitations of block by block. They're not stupid. They may not have their GED. They definitely did not go to higher education, but they're smart enough to know the limits of those that are out representing law enforcement. So again, with regards to added duties of scooter pickup, this comes down to who the city, this contract city that hides behind that contract city curtain, contracts out with, not having responsibilities by that service, and then not holding them to changes that are desperately needed and voiced by the public. So good job, block by block. I hope they don't have you, patrolling the bars, doing security surveillance, because again, that should be the bar and restaurant responsibility, not law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Shay, are you on here with block by block? Go ahead. Anything unusual, Shay?
So I wanted to say good evening, commissioners, and congratulations to Danny again. So as far as any new trends or anything like that, we have been receiving quite a few more calls on the west side. So we're trying to address those issues as quickly as possible. Of course, the west side nightlife, pickpockets, they're definitely reporting things to us, and we give that information off to the sheriffs. With new transients that we're seeing coming into the district, we're running into quite a few of them that may possess some type of weapon of some sort, pole, bat, knife. Haven't run into any issues where we have been assaulted or anything like that, but we are coming across some new faces that are possessing these type of items. And of course, we do, I think it was a caller earlier, Kat, I believe, suggesting that we keep records. We do keep records of every interaction that we have. So we do have that now. Depending on what's requested of us, we'll determine what type of information we release. Let's see here. Also, I attended a teleconference with the Women's Advisory Board, try to explain some of our services to them. That went well. We have just recently been awarded the new unarmed security guard service contract. So that will put us, it will integrate us even more on the west side, giving me the capability to beef up teams, which is great. We'll have post positions in the West Hollywood Park, the library, will be in the Aquatic Center, City Hall. We'll also beef up staffing in Plummer Park, which is fantastic. So I'm very excited about that. Have been facing a few issues on the corner of La Brea and Santa Monica as far as the kiosk goes. Once the installation of the bus benches were complete, they also had outlets. So a lot of the transient population come over, claim that they're going to be getting on the bus, start plugging in their devices. The buddies come over, kind of becomes a hangout spot for a moment or two. So sometimes people are passing by, and I know that the area looks pretty messed up, but it's just for a brief moment in time. Also, the vacancies of the once occupied spaces for businesses are an attractive to the transient population as well. So we're trying to deal with all these things best we can. We are in contact with the Sheriff's Department with that to see if we can mitigate those issues as best we can. But as far as that, that's really it for us. Plus, also been doing major hiring so that we'll be able to fulfill everything that we need to as far as this new contract goes. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Thank you, Shay. Commissioner comments on this? Okay, commissioners, it's almost 2 hours. Do you guys want to keep going, or do you want to take a 10-minute break? I'm going to take a vote. You guys can raise your hands. You want to keep going? Who wants to take a break right now? Okay, let's keep going. Okay, Sheriff's Department.
Hi, good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. So for May of 2022, Part 1 crimes, we had 280 incidents. The Part 1 crime breakdown, like throughout the city, about 71% of Part 1 crimes occur on the west side. City center saw 15%, and the east side saw 14%. There were 204 in the theft category of those of the Part 1 crimes, and that's really what's driving the numbers. Aggravated assaults, we had 11, and 7 arrests were made. We had on the pickpocketing issue, we had 52 pickpockets, and there was a 1 arrest. There's an additional 37 that were a misdemeanor pickpocket arrests, and the 1 arrest occurred on the 15th of May at Mickey's. A female was arrested in that particular case. And we also noticed that the pickpocketing crimes, a lot more of them are occurring also on the streets as well, in crowded sidewalks, and we certainly saw that a couple weekends ago during Pride. So for May, there were 10 robberies, 4 armed and 6 strong armed, which 1 arrest was made, and that particular arrest was transient. Vehicle burglaries there were 43. So we are certainly watching that number to see if it's determine whether it's an organized ring that's back in the city. Other burglaries, like of commercial sub-garage, mailroom, that type, 22 we had of those with 1 arrest. Pride weekend, as you know, was weekend 2 weekends ago. It went very well. There were no major incidents, which was very important that we saw that happening. As you know, though, there were quite a few of the pickpocketing incidents. May 25th, we had an etching event for catalytic converters. Our TRAP team, which is the Task Force for Regional Auto Theft Prevention, came out. They have a trailer, and they did free etching of catalytic converters with like a serial number on it or whatever number you wish to put on it to identify it. We had 18 people come out for that. We will have another event probably later in the summer that will also let everybody know ahead of time. So if people want to come out and do that, they'll be able to do that. The TRAP team has also come out prior in the city to conduct a special operation regarding vehicle thefts and so forth. This particular TRAP team is a multi-agency team with LA Sheriff, LAPD, CHP, and others that throughout LA County kind of investigate and do more of the major vehicle-related type crimes. So aside from that, that's all I have tonight. Do you have any questions?
Commissioner Roman.
Yes, hi. Hi, Captain Mulder.
Hi, Commissioner Roman, how are you?
Okay, so my question to you again, pickpockets started in the year 2015. It's the year 2022. We had 60 reported this week. So if it's 60, it's really 200, because I would never think to call the cops if somebody snatched my phone or something. So this is a gang that comes in. They come in every weekend. They know what to do. They move through the bars. They swipe as much as they can and they go. So do you guys have a plan to, it's 7 years now. Do you have a plan? Because I would think that if you did some stings and busted some people, it would send a message to these gangs like, oh shit, they're on to us. We can't go to WeHo anymore. So I'm just really trying to understand, how can you guys see these crimes every week coming in and just be like, okay, well, let's report it to Public Safety Commission and let's keep moving. Do you actually have a plan to go after these people?
Yeah, Commissioner Roman, as we've talked about at previous commission meetings, we've done different things and we'll continue to address those. So we've done, as we talked about before, a couple undercover operations. We've done some operations then with our cops and entertainment policing teams as well, plainclothes operations, because with our folks in our department, you have to go through a week class to be eligible to work undercover, which we are going to put our people at our station, our cops, entertainment policing, and our detective bureau through that. We've just been waiting until they had
can I ask, your undercover that you've already done, have you arrested anybody? Has it ever worked?
So for those operations I said in the past, we have not arrested anybody.
Okay, so that has not worked. So now you're saying you want to train your own police and put them through this week program. I've heard you say that for the past 5 months now. When are you actually going to send them? And then when can you give us a date now when you'll have your trained people ready to hit the bars and start doing undercover stuff? Just so we can put in a calendar.
Yeah, well, first of all, the training, it's not up to us, it's if they offer the training. So certainly COVID has restricted a lot of the training up to this point. And then this last month or so, our narcotics bureau is putting on the training, and they had a very large operation, a marijuana sting operation up in Northern County. So I'm still in contact with them. They still know we want the training. It's really dependent upon them to have the availability to have the training for us.
Got it. So there's no date.
No, there's no date now, but we're definitely working on it. And in terms of dates doing operations, I won't put those out because that would kind of defeat the purpose. I think it's better to speak about them after the fact that we've done them. And one thing, we've done 2 undercover operations thus far that, as you asked about, have not, we didn't have arrests on either of those. But with this type of crime, there has to be a lot more frequency we see for their undercover operations, because it's a very difficult crime to catch somebody. And based on the types of the process that these criminal gangs use, it makes it very complicated for us to catch somebody unless we are repeatedly doing undercover operations in the nightlife establishments and out on the sidewalk, because it's happening out there, especially at COVID.
So this is, guys, if you just hear this, I'm really trying to be rational here. I'm open-minded. I personally, I think Captain Mulder's a cool guy, but this is why I don't believe in the police. Like they literally can't, but if you gave me $1 million, all of these people would be in jail this weekend. I would figure it out. And so this is why I can't support the police anymore, because it's literally been happening for 7 years. Do you know what a shitty feeling it is when you're out with friends and all of a sudden your $1,500 phone is gone?
Commissioner Roman, I'm so sorry. Again, I please express yourself, but please do it in a respectful way. You keep using profanity, and that's not something that we're going to be tolerating here at this commission or moving forward. So I just ask you, sir, please respectfully, just use respectful language when you're expressing yourself.
Okay, so this is why I cannot support the police. It's been 7 years and they can't figure this out. In New York, they did it. You launch ProScan, they scan every person that comes into a bar, they scan your ID. If somebody gets pickpocketed, they use the security footage, they rewind, they see the person doing it, they match them with the ID, they go to their house and arrest them. You do that a few times and game over for these gangs. It's that simple. It's called ProScan. And everybody uses it. And you just link up with the police and you use it together and you figure it out. I understand if you put an undercover in there, it's going to be hard for him to actually visually see the person grab the phone and go. I get that. But this isn't rocket science. We're not solving the gun pandemic. We're not solving world hunger. It's just some gangs coming in and robbing our people every weekend. And everybody is sick and tired of it. And I'm really trying to be cool about this, but enough is enough. And nobody on this commission is speaking up against this. Like, why am I the only one that, like, I don't go to bars. I'm sober. I don't go near those places. I just can't believe that nobody else is as freaked out as I am. It's very simple to sort this out, and to listen to Captain Mulder say the same thing over and over. It just, yeah, I'd rather put $3 million and have block by block people standing around. Maybe that'll scare them, scare these people. And so, you know, you guys really need to think about it and try to understand what policing means today. They don't do anything. They don't solve crimes. They don't prevent them. And it's not that they're bad people. It just doesn't work. If somebody comes in here and they're a criminal, they're going to do what they're going to do. And so thank you, Captain Mulder.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Roman. I think something like that, we would want to have some facts about that. One. Number two, I think it's the owner of the, I don't think the cops have any say-so about what an owner of a store does. That would have to get their cooperation with anything like that, I'm not sure. And then we would want to get some facts on exactly how well this project works. And have a real good discussion. I don't know how that would work, Captain Mulder, if you guys pursued anything like that, but I think it would be a nice discussion with our commissioners to possibly something. Do you, Commissioner Soon-Shiong?
Yeah, thank you so much. I have 3 questions. The first one, Captain Mulder, is it was mentioned in one of the earlier city council meetings that actually 2 out of the 249 cell phones that were pickpocketed were recovered from undercover sting operations. But I'm hearing from you tonight that it was actually 0. And so I just want clarity over whether it's 2 or 0. Maybe we can pause there to answer that first question before my other 2 questions.
Hi, Commissioner Soon-Shiong. So with regard to the 2 undercover operations, we had one that was in December with our Narcotics Bureau, and it was a dual undercover operation for nightlife safety, spiking, and cell phones. And there were no arrests made in that particular one. Then the second one we had was in March with our major crimes, and there were no arrests made with that that particular operation. However, right when that operation shut down that same night, there were 2 reports of pickpocketing and deputies, patrol deputies responded and arrested people, I think in both of those two cases. So not from the undercover operation.
Okay.
Patrol arrested those out of a call. So those were the two different undercover operations, in addition to other operations that the your West Hollywood cops team and entertainment policing team have run, either a saturation patrol, foot beats, plainclothes operations. So there's a difference. I know this all sounds kooky and don't mean to get in the weeds, but a difference in our department, how we look at a plainclothes operation and an undercover operation. So we've done plainclothes, which is deputies just in regular clothes, walking around the street, seeing what they see, and then they call it out to uniformed deputies to come in if there's an issue. So those are some of the things we've been doing, and we'll continue to expand. And I have the same frustration you have, same frustration Commissioner Roman has. I'm sure all of you have. We don't like to see anybody get victimized or any crime at all, but we're certainly seeing these numbers going up, and we're going to work on different ways of dealing with it. Like you were talking about that scan. That's not, and what Chair Berger said, that's kind of dependent upon each business to get that program to scan people in. But I know talking with our wonderful new public safety director, Danny Rivas, we're talking about those issues and seeing how we can bring in see what systems are used, what systems are best. Let's see what we can then, I know we're going to have a discussion coming up about that, and then maybe putting together some information for the rest of our clubs about using that kind of platform. But we can't make them do it. That's something a private business has to do. But we want to hopefully kind of coordinate this, so we'll be using the same type of program so we can get the same information and maybe better, at least from that angle, maybe better address this situation.
Okay, thank you so much. I have two more questions. So the second question is about something I've brought up in a number of meetings, which is the way that these crime reports are presented. So it's April of 2021 compared to April of 2022, or May of 2021 compared to May of 2022. And I'm wondering if you could describe to us the reasons for presenting those 2 months together with one another in order to represent crime trends.
Yeah, so that's the way that we represent our numbers, and we look at this past May as compared to, or look at this May 2022 as compared to last May of 2021, and certainly at this point in time, doing those comparisons are challenging because of COVID, and that certainly changed the dynamic in terms of crime rates and so forth, as you well know. So, but that's what we use to address those. Now, there is information on the county open portal and crime mapping and different information out there that you can look at as well. And then we're also talking about, not to get ahead of ourselves, putting out some information, the city is, with our crime stats, and giving people an opportunity with a toolbar to kind of put it in different ways, to look at it in different ways. I know that there's been requests like for a trend line for crime, different types of crime, over the year or compared to the previous year. Those kinds of things we unfortunately can't do, but we're looking now with the city. The city's looking to maybe create a system that people can actually look at it in different ways with the toolbar, and they have all the crime data in there, and you can kind of have that opportunity to do so. We in the County of Los Angeles, we have an open portal. You probably have seen it, I'm sure, and we report different crime data there, and there's like a tool you can use, I think, kind of put it in different express it in different ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I actually received a spreadsheet that does report particular crimes over months and years. And so I guess I'm just curious in general about the practice of comparing 1 month in 1 year to 1 month the year later. Is there something about months? Is crime seasonal? Are there particular crimes that always happen in May? So it makes sense to compare Mays of different years. I'm just trying to understand the theory behind that general practice, because I understand from your answer that it's a general practice.
You know, it's a good question. Well, you can, if you look at like, if you consider like December, it's a holiday season, more people are out buying items and so forth, and that creates targets for criminals. So comparing December like to maybe February wouldn't be as an accurate comparison. Then summer months is different too in terms of crime. So I think we've use a month-to-month comparison this May to last May because usually the same in terms of weather and different events that are going on and holidays are similar, and that's the way the department has kind of has done that. So, but I think with once the city puts together this new program and all, you'll get that should give you an opportunity to look at it in different ways, maybe some of the ways that you guys have asked for here at the commission or any other way. And maybe that's something, some requests you might have about which way, how you want to see it, and see if we can program it in that manner or fashion.
Okay, it is downloadable on the LA County Sheriff's website, and it has been sent to council. So there are that information is available, which is the good news. And I guess why I ask, in spite of that information being available, we still are seeing month to month given COVID. My final question is about training. So as I understand from your presentation, the reason for why 2 out of 249 cell phones have been recovered is because the need for additional training to officers for those undercover operations. And there was a report at the county level that only 80% of sheriff's deputies and supervisors had met at least one of many training requirements, including firearms competency and arrest tactics. And so I'm wondering if you have any metrics on within the WeHo substation, how many deputies have fully fulfilled their training requirements?
Yeah, well, so there's different kinds of training. I think what you're maybe referring to, there's like kind of mandated training. Some of it's mandated by state, other by post, those sorts of things. Post for peace officer standards and training that is managed by the state of California. So there's different types of training and different kind of mandates that go into those trainings. So with that, we want to make sure we get all our people through what's required. And then there's the additional training, which is what I'm talking about in terms of for people to work undercover. So, and then that training is not necessarily offered as often because of the specificity of that type of training and the fact that it's not a required training for everybody. So there's certain training that is required for everybody. And yes, we do keep stats at the station in terms of compliance with the required training.
And I was wondering, that was my question, if you could share the statistics of the completion of the required training as we consider the additional allocation to additional non-required training.
Yeah, so non-required training, there's not really a stat for that because it's something like, for instance, our teams and Detective Bureau want to put through undercover operations, but that's not something that we put everybody through, all patrol deputies, because they're doing a different job. So there's not going to be a statistic for that, but there is for mandated training, there are stats for that because we have to do that training. So because it's something we have to apply for, either once a year, once every 2 years, once every whatever the term is. So I can get our compliance rate for our mandated training for you guys. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
For our station. And
right.
Then of course, COVID has certainly impacted it. We're moving out of those impacts at this point, but that certainly has impacted it leading up to this point.
COVID has impacted the completion of training?
Yeah, indeed. Well, certainly when we're in COVID, training ceased because of the concerns about infection.
Okay, so there was no completion of training during COVID, or no trainings conducted of deputies during COVID.
So I won't represent that. I have to go look just to see.
Okay.
But I know that it certainly for a period of time, our training bureau and all that shut down because of, as you well know, the issues that we're going through worldwide to try to stop the spread. And contact increased the spread. So training was stopped for a period of time because of that. So how it exactly impacted our station and exactly what our numbers are and all that because of COVID, I can't tell you right off the top of my head here, but I can get our current compliance with our mandated training numbers, percentages to you guys at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. It'd be wonderful if we could receive that in advance of the next meeting, if that would be possible. And I know I've been talking for
Oh
long.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, whenever I have it, I'll get it together and I'll send it on to Director Rivas, and he can then disseminate it amongst the commission.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Soon-Shiong. Also, Captain Mulder, the training that you guys need to be able to go into undercover, our commission, and I think the residents too, one thing that they really like to see is some kind of action, a lot of communication with us. And those residents out there, maybe you can ask our liaison, like, what's the current status? Because we have a whole month we have to wait. So we would like to be able to see some progress. That's, I think, one thing that I'm hearing is people want to see movement and some sort of action towards your goals. I'm sorry, I don't know who was next. Was it Commissioner Balbone? Go ahead, Commissioner Balbone.
Okay, thank you, and congratulations, Captain. I have a couple of questions. The first one is regarding the rape in the month of May. Are there any details you can provide us, of course, keeping that person's privacy?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for your kind words. So the one you saw on the rate that was listed on the report, I'm just going back and just reviewing it to see what I can tell you. Okay.
Specifically, I'm concerned, and I'd like to understand if you have the gender of that person, number one, and number two, if we know if there was any potential for that person to have been subject to spiking of their drink or any other drugs.
So with
involuntary drugs.
Right. In this particular case, the victim survivor was a female, and the information for this case did not indicate that there was drugs against her will.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
I'm a big supporter of the trend lines as well. I think it's incredibly helpful. Along those lines, it appears that aggravated assaults, armed and strong-armed robberies are up year over year, and some of the trends continue to spike. Is there anything you're seeing on those? I know we've talked about aggravated assaults previously, but I'm curious. Is it more people out? What are we seeing?
Why are we seeing those numbers up? So yeah, for aggravated assaults, we'll start there. I don't know why those are up in particular, but one thing we do, we try to find some sort of information in each of these crimes that's something we can address. So almost 1/3 of last year's aggravated assaults were committed by transient individuals, and then this year we're still seeing that trend. It's almost 30%. I'm not 25 to 30. I think it's in that range. Don't hold me to that exact number, but it's right in that range. So that's a concern, and that's something that we can then address in the sense that we can do outreach with our cops teams, our team of policing teams, and patrol to transient individuals, contact them, and see if they need help, and connect them with Corey's Planks team, social services, but it's and try to prevent something from happening before it happens. When we see a percentage like that, that's with the transient population. So that's one thing. And then the robberies, a lot of the robberies are very similar in terms of the thefts of high-end watches. It appears people are, obviously watching people that have a high-end watch on and either following them somewhere to a club, or maybe following them after the club, or if they see them in a club or whatever circumstance, then contacting them on the street and stealing that. So we know the pattern of that crime, but in terms of specific folks, we've seen some of those have been gang members, LA gang members, but otherwise, that's kind of the information that we're looking at thus far.
Okay, and along those lines, I know surrounding cities have been seeing some of these same things. And when it pertains to the cell phones, I started to really think about, like, are we the only ones? Is it just West Hollywood? And apparently it's a problem in Hollywood, downtown, Koreatown, and other spots. And my question for you is, I think the scanning helps a lot. I wonder if we should gather together with the nightlife community and just make it a thing, because if certain bars start doing it and others don't, I don't know if it'll be effective, but I just wonder, are there communications across Los Angeles and other cities that see some of this, that have an active nightlife community? Is there any discussion on what you're seeing and how that's working?
So we do have a West Side Commanders meeting, which now that I'm in this new role as captain, will be attending those. And also I am planning on meeting with the different captains of our surrounding stations. And this is one of the topics of conversation that I'll be having with them, is what issues they're having, what they're doing, what we can all do together. Because it's, I'm sure a lot of these, obviously these are related crimes in terms of some of these gangs are working all these areas. So they're not just working in the West Hollywood area. So this is something that I think would be appropriate for a joint response between the different policing agencies, Hollywood, us, Beverly Hills, and others.
And I think it's really, really important. It's always been important, but right now people don't have another $1,000 to spend on a phone. They just don't have it. So, it's going to be a choice for a lot of people, if we don't figure something out, to either not go out. And I think that's really the choice, right? Because people just will not have $1,000 to keep spending on their phones. And that's sometimes what the phones cost. So I think, it's something that if we can start to work with the business community and get a lot more focus, because there's a lot of opportunity all around in this one, it's important. And I think we have to figure out how to do that with urgency.
Yeah, Commissioner, you're absolutely correct. I totally agree. And we are working on some things in addition to just the undercover operations and different kind of law enforcement operations, other things we can do to kind of notify community, people that are going out, how to be safe, and other things that we can do around that. So that is a conversation that we're having. We'll figure something out in that realm.
Thank you, Commissioner Balbone. Captain, I don't know if I do or not, but I
His
believe
phone's
that
not
there's
working.
there's existing. Hello?
You're cutting in and out.
Can you hear me?
We can hear
Oh.
you now. Go
Okay, I believe that there's a software that's existing on phones right now that can be used to catch these guys. That's already on people's phones. I really would encourage you guys to have a tech guy that you can in on your conversations about how to catch them. Okay, and then the second thing is about the transients that are committing the aggravated assaults. I would be curious to how many of those are repeats. Do they go to jail as soon as you catch them? What happens with these guys? I'm curious about how many of those guys are just let back out to do it again. Okay, I don't know who was next. Was it? I think Michael Vojkolevich, I know your public comment. I'm sorry that we didn't get you earlier. Would you rather wait until Michael? Would you
Actually,
rather
I'd
wait?
like to speak. I would like to speak now if possible, Tori.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? I'm sorry I didn't get to you first.
Okay, that's okay. So again, Michael Vojkolevich, and unless mistaken, what I have heard tonight is putting the bulk of the responsibility onto the sheriff's department for patrons that go into a private business. Now, there's a big difference between private business, interior, and public street. We don't, although we like to think that the sheriff's department is doing somewhat of a patrol on our streets, we don't expect them to look after the stupidity of humans that leave their belongings visible within their vehicles. I mean, this conversation is just stupid. You know, the businesses, the restaurants, and the bars have made out under COVID with PPP funds and other COVID-19. They're the ones who are charging $20 for a watered down drink. Since this commission, like so many other commissions and boards, seems to be so gay-centric, and we all know how gay culture loves their colors and they love their letters, let's start applying some colors and letters just like we do to restaurants as far as grades. And we can put the big D and the big F in pink to business to bars that actually don't protect their patrons. You know, pickpocketing of phones actually really began in 2007 with the advent of the iPhone, because not only was it a very expensive device, but it was one of those devices that first had so much personal information allowed to be stored within it. Prior to the iPhone, it was just the wallets. So pickpocketing is not something like a new phenomenon. There have been rings of organized thieveries that target certain areas for certain things. So, you know, I've never lost a phone at a restaurant. I've never had one pickpocketed in bars. I have gone to all the bars, not only in the state of California, but, you know, Western Europe. You just have to be smart. So sheriffs, the other thing is this talk about adding more social services. Not once tonight have I heard any commissioner say, let's hold our current contracted providers accountable. The fact is this, the problem that we have is because the contracted service providers have failed, city staff deflect, and commissions and commissioners like you all don't ask the pertinent question. And you blame the sheriff, you blame this, you blame that for everything. You know, each individual needs to take some responsibility if they're going to have a night out. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That's an interesting idea about a rating system. We want to put that on our thinking caps on our work plan. I'm sorry, you guys, I don't know which one was first, if it was Commissioner Oliver or Commissioner Roman. Commissioner
So
Oliver.
I just wanted to, thank you. Good evening, Captain Mulder. I wanted to see if this technological fix the one that Commissioner Roman was talking about, might be something that we could implement here in West Hollywood. I would imagine it would take a motion by council, that it would not be something that the sheriff's department would implement itself on its own. But I guess it's a question for Captain Mulder. Is this something that we could explore that the sheriff's department maybe has done before or might be able to adapt to? And then also to the commission, is this something to agendize for a future discussion and perhaps explore a way to recommend that ID scanner technology to council to consider?
Captain,
Go
can
ahead,
I go?
Commissioner Roman. Yeah, go
Captain
ahead.
Mulder, so currently, is anyone in your police department, the WeHo Police Department, trained to go undercover? Or any out of all of you guys, is anyone trained currently?
So let me answer Commissioner Oliver's question first. I think
Sure.
he was asking if, so we can't, require any business to have that kind of technology, but certainly if they have that kind of technology, it is a deterrent and can be, I think, challenging for some of these groups to get in. So, and certainly it'd be great if there was a coordination amongst that information, people using these, and the information would be helpful in investigations. And that's something that we have just recently talked about in the city. So I think that's a work in progress. So yes. Then in terms of Commissioner Roman's question, yeah, some of our folks in our detective bureau are trained in undercover. But I think I don't know how many exactly. I think there's a couple. I think there's 2, but I don't know the exact numbers.
Are you trained? Are you trained to go undercover?
I am not. I have not gone through the undercover course.
So yeah, maybe whichever ones you currently have, instead of waiting for this training program to come up that's been affected by COVID, which I think it's wild that you guys are still using COVID as an excuse. But why don't you just go with the ones that you have? So use those. And just on another note, this pro scan technology. So the fact that I'm bringing it up is terrifying. And the fact that you guys haven't already looked into this. So the bars already have it, guys. Mickey's uses it. There's like 3 bars on the strip that already use it. And the reason why I know about this is because I did research and I saw what they did in New York and how effective it was. The problem with this technology is the person enters the bar, they scan. Let's say it's a criminal. They do the pickpocket. The person, then the police need to get involved and get that video footage and actually do the work and go through, identify the person, and then they need to go out to wherever this person lives and arrest them. That's the hard part. Who's going to do that? And who's going to be accountable for doing that? So it can be done and it works. New York did it. Some of the bars already have it. I would also say that we vote for putting surveillance on the streets in the entertainment district. So all along there should be cameras on the streets. That could also help the police. And, I agree with what Michael said about, the bars should be responsible and people should be responsible. I agree with that to a certain degree, but you know what? People come here, they want to party, they're on vacation, they're visiting, or they live here, and it's just out of control. Like if it was 10, it's just out of control, and that's why I'm bringing it up. So, but the pro scan exists, Mulder. I sent it to you. I sent you all the information already, and so, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Like that just seems like a quick fix. New York did it at work. You got to spend the time to go arrest the people. And you've got to send a clear message out. So let them stay in Koreatown or let them go downtown, but know that if they come to WeHo, they're going to get arrested. And so anyway, but yeah, I wish that you would use the people that you have trained.
Yeah, we have
Captain
used
Mulder?
them in the previous undercover operations, and we'll continue to use them. But we do need to train others as well.
So Captain Mulder, if this pro scan, somebody, you would look at the videos and see, oh, I saw that guy pickpocket the other person. Could you go arrest them at their house? If you knew their
Well, I
ID.
think the investigation a little bit more, I think, complicated than that. But I mean, certainly if they had, video of them committing a crime, we had a victim, and we had a lead in terms of a scanned ID, that could certainly lead to an arrest of somebody, certainly more than what's happening now. And the people, Mickey's system, I think 2 or 3 years ago we went and visited Mickey's and looked at the system. So we are aware of the system, but again, it's not something we can compel every bar, club, restaurant to have. And with regard to our undercover trained folks, those people are, I think the 2 people that are trained currently are in our detective bureau. But it's important that we train our cops and entertainment policing teams, because those are the people that are really doing these types of operations. Detectives are working during the day trying to solve these crimes, and keep pulling them out of that and putting them on nights to do these kinds of operations isn't helpful to get our investigations completed. And that's why we want to make sure get our teams trained, then they can do these operations, because that's what their task as a team member is.
Okay, thank you. One thing, commissioners, that we could do, and maybe Danny can bring this back amongst his other ideas for improvement, whatever it is that you're going to bring back to us, is we could motivate the different bars or whatever with from the city's perspective of some kind of incentive that you guys put these cameras in, we'll pay for them, or we'll pay for the system or something like that. That is something that I think we could recommend, but I'm not sure if we should do it tonight. I'm wondering if we should wait until Danny comes back with his ideas next. Okay, so why don't we move on, unless anybody has any more. Let's move on to the next item, which is the commissioner work plan and request tracking. Commissioners, I know it's been, and some of you had some really good ideas. Do you want to look at the work plan and to add anything to that work plan that we want to address, that we want to agendize for our future? Everybody's tired. I know one thing that I wanted to do, I don't know, it's probably not timely now because we are having the budget go in already, but I felt like there was a sense from the commissioners that we were never able to really dive in to the complexity of our whole reimagining. The discussion was never fully fleshed out. And that's something that I was really interested to do. And I think that we can't do it once per month. I think that we would need to do it on special meetings more often, because this meeting was long by itself, and our residents only have one time per month to come and listen and speak with these things. So I would like to forward something like that. I would just like people to sound off about that. Is it something you guys want to do, or is it realistic that we should dive into this anymore? Danny may be able to weigh in on this. Melissa may be able to weigh in on this. It's just something that I just felt like was kind of undone. We just didn't really finish it because we didn't go too deep into the complexity of it. So I just want to put that thought out.
Hey, Chair. Yeah, I'll jump in, and Melissa can add to anything that I may be missing. But I think this is a great opportunity, given that I am new to being the liaison to the commission, so maybe we could certainly schedule, a special meeting if the commission is amenable to that, and really kind of focus in on the work plan and hash that out without any other items, right, being on the agenda, so that we can concentrate on that. So that's something that we can certainly look to. We do have, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself in terms of items from staff, but I'll kind of go over the calendar for the future, and maybe that's something that we can add to the calendar as we look ahead.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Roche, do you want to give some input on this?
Yeah, that all sounds great, but I actually, after reviewing the work plan again, would like to add an item that we've discussed in prior meetings that, to be totally honest, I'm not really sure what notes Kristen Cook took and has passed along to Danny. I'm not really sure of this transfer of power and information and updates. So I'm just going to go ahead and reiterate it now that Danny's with us. But in terms of our work plan, item, or I should say goal 6, contracts with public safety agencies. We have 4 items on there. So the 4th item says review information on complaints that go directly to the sheriff's department and bypass the city. I would like to suggest that we can either keep that or reframe it. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because in previous meetings, I've mentioned how we do not have a transparent, we recommended to create a new and transparent accountability system and grievance process. Specifically because there are members of our community that have been harmed by LASD, and they don't feel comfortable coming to these meetings and speaking as much as I encourage them to. And there needs to be a new process, a grievance process for them to report. So I would like that to be added to the work plan under this goal. It could be added to that line item, or it could be a separate line item. But I think it really needs to be added to the work plan so it's not forgotten.
Do you guys think that, do you want to go through this, or do you want to have another special meeting specifically to go and include Danny in this and go through our whole work plan? A separate meeting where we can really, I feel frazzled tonight because it's just like we've been going for so long. I feel like maybe we need to have a meeting and really get with our new director and flesh out our work plan.
Okay, but Tori, before Chair, I'm so sorry, but before we do that, can I make a motion since we're on the work plan right now, and I would like to see that being added. Can I just make a motion? People can vote it down or up, it doesn't matter, but can I at least complete that step? Yes. And then we can discuss how we want to navigate the next special meeting, etc. So I would like to make a motion to add this to our work plan to look into creating a new and transparent accountability system and grievance process.
Seconded.
Can you explain that a little bit better, what that means?
Sure. So right now, those who want to file a complaint to LASD, they have to file it directly to LASD. We as a commission have asked those complaints to come to us. The truth is there's really no way of us knowing if complaints are being filed with LASD. So if folks are being harmed, we actually have no way of knowing. And we're then relying on those individuals to come to us, know that we exist, know that we want to hear from them, and review that. So if there was a third party that they can feel comfortable going to that would report directly to, that party would then directly report to council, essentially leaving out LASD in order to create an unbiased pathway for folks to be heard. I don't know about you, but I'm unclear as to the complaints that are being submitted to LASD. I don't know. I don't hear about them. I don't know if there are any, and if there are any, we're not hearing about them, because the only way we're going to hear about them is if they show up to these meetings and tell us and get on record. Correct? That is my that's my understanding. So is there a way for us to creatively come up with I mean, this is an opportunity for us to hear from a constituency that are basically self-silencing. That's it. That's it. I'm not here to like cause, I'm literally just trying to create opportunities for folks to be heard in ways that feel safe to them. That's it. So.
Okay, that makes total sense. And that would come under our purview of assessing and monitoring directly. So we had a motion and we had, Melissa.
I think Melissa
Can I just jump in real quick?
Can the public speak?
Oh, God.
Hang on, Michael. Go ahead, Melissa.
So as part of the municipal code for the Public Safety Commission, there are limitations as to your oversight of individual complaints to LA County Sheriff. There is the Civilian Oversight Commission. That's the independent commission that handles those types of complaints. So before the motion proceeded, I simply wanted to bring that to the commission's attention.
Melissa,
Okay.
I was on mute and I had a question. You know, the city contracts with a variety of vendors. LASD is one of them, and they happen to be a focus of many concerns that are raised. Is there a process overall for the city to field complaints for any of the vendors we contract with? Anyone who we typically talk about here at Public Safety, but Human Services contracts with vendors. I'm sure other parts of the city contract with vendors. What's the process for the public other than contacting the city council members? Is there one?
For social services contracts, as part of the scope of services and included in the contract is audits that are done by the coordinators in social services. For whatever reason, when the Public Safety Commission was created, the need, I guess, was felt to put in this limitation for the Public Safety Commission. And if you recall, I believe it was late 2020 or early 2021, we did update the municipal code related to the Public Safety Commission. And this part was kept there because you don't only oversee the sheriff's contract, you also oversee the fire contract, block by block, make recommendations, emergency management and preparedness. I mean, there are several other things, whereas civilian oversight committees only focus on complaints related to whether it be LAPD, LA County Sheriff. I don't even think Beverly Hills, to my knowledge, has any sort of oversight committee for their police department, but it's been a few years since I worked there. Things could have changed.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Of course. I want to say something about this because what's ringing true with me, Vice Chair Roche, is from a customer service perspective. It's not to bust the sheriffs or anything. It's in alignment with how we assess and monitor. We're the middleman, really. We're the only commission that is a liaison like that between our services and the public. And you can understand why, because I just met with a guy tonight, just before this meeting, who had an interaction with the sheriff, and he had some things he wanted to talk with me about. And I said, okay, we're looking to ways to improve. And if you're this person in that situation, you're like, I don't want to address my complaints to the sheriff because they might not like me then or whatever. So from a customer service perspective, to see this and how we can improve that on our end, that's what I hear you saying, Vice Chair Roche, is how do we assess? How do we monitor if we don't have the information and the data? If we're not getting it directly from like a robocall or something, how did we do? How did our sheriffs do? We need to know those kinds of things as a commission, I think. And then I think that the deputies in the sheriff's department would like to know those as well. But those can't come directly to them. They have to come to an unbiased, like us, a committee, something like that. So, okay, let's hear some other people before we have a motion and we have a second. Do you guys want to maybe make a friendly amendment or something, or do you just want to support this, or can we go ahead and vote? I see 4 hands up.
I just think,
For the public's sake.
Before we're in commissioner comments right now, I believe. Before we vote on something like this, I agree with the spirit of it. I just want to have more information, as to our purview, as to the role of the Civilian Oversight Commission. I think everybody wants that kind of transparency and that kind of accountability and the kind of outlet that you're describing. I just want to make sure that the recommendations that we make as a commission are thoughtful, and that we first, as an entire commission, because some of us may have more background than others in how complaints are handled, just make sure that all 7 of us have the kind of background we need to make an informed decision on anything, including this.
The motion to put it in our work plan, right? So we can, that's the only thing. It's not to create it. So I think as long as we can all agree to put this on our work plan, but perhaps we can just move to vote, and then in that work plan discussion, then we can be prepared with that background information.
Right, that's a good point. And it would just be our work plan, Commissioner Oliver, and we would, if we needed bring other people in to educate us, we can decide that as well, so that we're all informed. Okay, Melissa, do you still have a question there?
No, Chair, I'm sorry.
City?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know who was first. Commissioner Roman, I think, is next.
So right now, if somebody wants to file a complaint against the police, they literally have to file it with the police?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Or I think I heard Melissa say the Civilian Oversight Commission, but I don't think most people would go to the Civilian Oversight Commission from West Hollywood. I think most people don't know what it does.
My God. Yeah, so it would be great to have like a robocall. So if you call 911, you get a call back. How did you like you do when you call Verizon or when you call anywhere else, and people ask you to do a survey or to do it, and who checks that? It doesn't need to be the Public Safety Commission, but somebody besides the police should be checking it. But that's really funny.
That's something
you have to launch.
That's something that we can put on our work plan.
Yeah.
If you guys if you want to vote on that one, and then Michael Vojkolevich, let us have the commissioner comments first. Do you have something that you want to add to this, Michael, before we take the vote?
We have an item on the floor, a motion on the floor.
Yeah, why don't go ahead, Michael? Let's hear.
Hey, Chair Berger. Chair Berger.
Yeah.
Chair Berger, this is Bill Mulder. May I just make a quick comment at your pleasure, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just to let you know, folks, there are multiple places people can report a complaint. On the LASD website, you can obviously report to our department. You can also report it. There's a telephone number you can call, which just goes to our department. You can also call the LA County Equity Oversight Panel, the Los Angeles County Inspector General, State of California Fair Employment and Housing, California Department of Justice, U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Federal Bureau of Investigation, United States Department of Justice, the ACLU of Southern California, and the United Nations Human Rights Council. So there's multiple places that a person can go and file a complaint against our department other than our department.
Okay, thank you. Michael Wojciechowicz, can you wait? I think that we better go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Chair, I recognize, this is Michael Wojciechowicz, that it is odd that a person from the public may be commenting on commissioners' comments, but something very interesting has come up, and that is the bias and the self-interest and the personal mission by some appointed commissioners. You all should start with the city that you are serving. The city of West Hollywood, which again hides behind the curtain that is called Contract City. This city itself doesn't have a formal procedure to either register a complaint or lodge a grievance with its own staff, its own council members. And whether Craig Rea, Daphne Dennis, Elizabeth Savage, David Juni, when it comes to contracted social services, again, no formal process. If you're going to do one for the sheriffs, you better do one for the fire department, because I have a complaint or two. And that said, let's include Child Protective Services, where this city and its contracted social service providers and housing providers turned a blind eye to what Kelly Frazier said was the suspected sexual violence being performed on a minor. That child is no longer a resident of West Hollywood. That child deserves justice for the failures of not only the entities that are within the city, but a public safety commission at that time, which ignored the possibility of problems such as that. You know, this commission has shown itself to be so reflective of gay-centric circles. There are many other people that have succumbed to either the sheriffs, the police, fire, protective services, elderly, elder abuse. So let's do it all. And let's first and foremost have the city of West Hollywood itself be on the list to actually have a formal process to file a grievance and or complaint. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, we have a motion on the floor in a second. Do we want to take a roll call? Staff, let's take a roll call on that motion.
Okay. Commissioner Balbone?
I support the item. I want to say that I want to also understand what we do receive if we receive nothing from the sheriffs on what complaints they get. That's like step one. So if anybody's going there to complain, we should know about it. We don't have to get the details, but we should know the numbers and what was done with those things as part of this process in the work plan. So I support it. No need to amend because it's going to go in the work plan, but I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Commissioner Hallman?
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver?
I support putting this in the work plan, though I think in the discussion, we're going to have more details to come, but to put this in the work plan.
Commissioner Roman?
Aye.
Commissioner Su Xiong?
Aye.
Vice Chair Roche?
Aye.
Chair Berger?
Aye. Okay, so it passes. So that's just for a work plan. We're going to need to go into more detail. There's going to be a lot more, but it's just an indicator that something that we're interested in. Okay, any more for the work plan? Besides that, do you guys want to go ahead and try to look into a separate special meeting so we can delve into a work plan with our new director? I don't know if anybody opposed that. So let's look into that, Danny. Maybe a possible date, and we can put it out to see if the commissioners can make that before our next meeting.
Sounds good, Chair.
Okay, let's go on to items from staff.
Yeah, so thank you and good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Public Safety Commission. I'm going to share my screen. I know the item is obviously reflected in the agenda in terms of going over the calendar. I don't know whether or not that was something that was shared during previous commission meetings, but I just shared my screen anyhow right now in terms of just giving everybody a snapshot of what's been on the calendar for the entire fiscal year. So as we kind of look to the future, and that being next month, it's going to be the new fiscal year. A couple of the items that we have already that are agendized is we are going to have our regular reports, both from the Sheriff's Department, Fire Department, and block by block security ambassadors. We are prepared also to have a presentation and an update, which my understanding is the commission has been waiting for from the Center for Policing Equity. So that is scheduled. I know that that's been rescheduled or postponed at their request. So we are having them scheduled to come and present to the commission next month. And then we also have election of the chair and vice chair. So I know our city clerk, who obviously has been on this entire meeting, will be facilitating that process. But that will be also something that will be on the agenda. And again, I certainly have been taking notes throughout the meeting, hearing all the input and feedback, and really looking forward to working with all of the commissioners here and trying to establish the work plan. Let's try to get something scheduled and set. I think it would be very important for all of us to get together and take some time, really focused time, to concentrate on what the work plan is going to look like as we look for the next fiscal year. So that concludes my comments, and I'm open to any questions the commission may have.
Thank you. There's no comments or questions. So we are. Go ahead, Commissioner Roman. Did you have something?
So really quick. So Danny, you're the new Kristen Cook.
I am currently, yes, filling into the role. There has been a slight change in terms of the title. So the title that Kristen possessed was Director of Public Safety. That has now been changed and modified to Community Safety. So yes, I am your new staff liaison overseeing that department.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Roman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Vice Chair Roche.
Thank you, Chair. I do have some comments before we close out this meeting. I know that it's been an interesting year so far for our commission. But I really just want to state and just put this on record that I know Sean Xiong has been getting a lot of heat since she's joined, Commissioner Sean Xiong, and I just want to take a moment to ask those of you who are listening, if you don't believe or her reporting, if you have personal feelings about it, I just strongly encourage you to do your own analysis. You don't need to take her word for it. It's all there. And same for the commissioners. We've been asked to evaluate these contracts. It's within our purview. Council asks us for our input regarding budgets. We are doing what we've been asked. And, in addition, I also just want to expose and denounce every single person who has actively and covertly intimidated and threatened and cyberbullied Commissioner Sean Xiong, along with making racist comments via email, WehoVille, Twitter, etc., and specifically Javier Gonzalez, who is the campaign manager of Alex Villanueva. So I am not here for it. West Hollywood prides itself on being a progressive city that has no tolerance for this behavior. I personally reviewed these comments and I just won't be complicit. So we may not all agree on, we might be finding differences in terms of these conversations that have been, coming up in our commission meetings. However, I asked the community members to really just observe this behavior. If you do see this behavior from other leaders in the community, to call it out. Having a difference of opinion is welcomed, but publicly attacking one of our commissioners, and that goes vice versa, the respect needs to be mutual. Attacking someone you hardly know is also so disgusting, to say the least. So I just really encourage folks who have a difference of opinion to have a conversation. But what I've seen over the last 6 months, especially since our February meeting, it's very disheartening. So on that note, though, sadly, I have to just share with all of you that I am resigning from this commission. Tonight will be my last night. Due to a list of personal reasons, I can't continue to participate in this role. But I want to thank, especially, those of you who really tried to help me through these last 6 months. Your efforts were greatly appreciated. I am really proud of the commissioners, of all of you. I'm really proud how you took this role seriously, as I did, and put in the time, the commitment, and more importantly, we didn't just rubber stamp the process. For the first time in a long time, I saw a group of people who were asking really hard questions and questioning authority and demanding transparency. And it has been such a pleasure working with all of you. I've learned so much. And more importantly, I've gained an extended family of public servants, and this is very bittersweet. So my very last thing I will say is I would like to make a suggestion. I can't make a recommendation, no more. But since I'm unable to make a motion, I would like to suggest that Commissioner Balbone fill the seat for vice chair. I hope that you consider that in July's meeting. I will not be there. I think she absolutely has the skill sets and the history. I've watched her attend COC meetings with me. I've seen her attend. She's gone above and beyond to understand the complexities of what we're about to engage in, or I should say all of you are about to engage in with CPE in your next meeting. And you will absolutely need all of that in order to have a really robust conversation. So you know how to find me. You can find me. You have my number. Please, our relationship doesn't end here. But with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner O'Shea. Wow, I didn't know that was going to happen. Commissioner Holman.
Thank you, Chair. I respect each and every one of my fellow commissioners. We are a passionate group of individuals, to say the least. We don't have to agree. We just need to get the work done that's presented to us. With that said, Co-Chair Roche, you know how I personally feel. When I was appointed to the commission by Councilmember Erickson, and I first heard you speak, I marveled at your brilliance. And I have worked very hard to learn from you. I will miss you. I know you're not gone from my life, but I will miss you on this commission. And I hope I've had enough time to absorb some of your brilliance. So thank you. And I know this has not been the only commission that you've served on in the city. You have been a very active part of the city for a very long time. And I think the city itself owes you a big debt of gratitude for your compassion and your service. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Commissioner Balbone.
Vice Chair Roche, you are a breath of fresh air and a force. You have a nice way of holding people accountable and also making space for everyone. And I commend you for it. I hope I've learned from you. I know I've learned from you. I hope I can emulate you. You are a bright star. You make space for everyone. And I appreciate that as a fellow commissioner, but also your neighbor. And I agree with all of your statements about Commissioner Strong and what she has faced. I think it is upsetting and disappointing. And one of the things that got me involved in the city of West Hollywood is the ability for people to civilly disagree in this city and still come back and keep focused as neighbors and as a community. And I think that if nothing else, our commission does that. And I am proud to call you all my fellow commissioners and my neighbors. And again, Vice Chair Roche, thank you, and I will miss you. And I hope I continue to see you around the city. I have a feeling I will. I hope so.
Thank you, Commissioner Oliver.
I'm so sad at this news. Vice Chair O'Shea, I just want to thank you. I'm repeating what everyone else has said. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. But at the end of the day, even when we don't agree on things, I feel like I come away from it thinking like, she makes a good point. And you're always like, you embody that reasonable people can disagree mentality, that like we can have this discussion. And I have learned a ton from you. And even when we're debating something, I still come away having learned something from you. And your seat is going to be your shoes are going to be hard to fill on this commission. So thank you. We'll miss you.
Any more commissioner comments? Vice Chair O'Shea, can you think about it and stay instead? Okay. Wow, I never got to talk with you. We tried to connect, but hopefully after this. Okay, I think that's it. If there's no more commissioner comments, we will be adjourned. It was a good meeting. It was long. Oh, sorry, Michael. Commissioners wanted an public comment. That's going to be up to the commissioners, Michael. Commissioners, raise your hand if you want to allow an additional public comment. Okay, Michael, let's try to get it in next time.
Hey, I didn't do first round, Tori. I'm allowed one round. Public is allowed one round of public comment. I wasn't available when first round.
Go ahead, Michael.
So this is it. This is all you need to know. This is what this commission is all about. And Vice Chair Roche said it. Not have the public the right to speak in the times or the amounts that are allotted. Instead, you want the time to self-congratulate each other, to repeat things that have already been said ad nauseum, and to give, your review of your big gay experience. This is how you do public safety. And this is why you have such little turnout. And if this is the pride that this city takes, when again, the city does not have any formal process for a resident to file a complaint or a grievance, it is people like you that keep that little protective bubble, because apparently the title that you have is the title that you need. And I will end on this note. In the past few months, I've encountered at city events, whether East Side cleanup or the opening of a garden, 3 current commissioners that sit on this commission. Did they once ever ask, so how's the public safety element in your neighborhood? No, because they don't care. Because low-income people are off the radar. So I'm going to forgo the rest of my time so you all can, praise the people that are on your commission, even more so than what you've already done. Somebody really needs to tally up the time that you all have taken and the language that has been used. If it's Near Zilberman or Tom DeMille, they get scolded. But if it's a commissioner that, one of the council members, is in their little inner circle, like that little teenage boy back in Florida, go out and live the world, invent the world that you want to live in. You give me chills. But when somebody does it right here at home, you got a problem. And that's my problem. This has been one of the most embarrassing meetings I have ever attended.
Thank you, Michael. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Take care, everybody. Have a good evening.